No, what are you doing? Yeah, that's your problem. Bagel over English muffin is a horrific choice. All right, I'm gonna lead in with your breakfast foods. And we are live. Welcome to the NFL DFS Pick'em Strategy Show presented by Black Friday. Thank God that stayed on the screen for long enough for me to get through that read. I am Josh Engelman. We are here to use OddShopper and find anything that we can find on the Pick'em sites for today. The last time we did this, I was off last week. I'm going to assume it was the week before that, but it could have been two. I don't remember when that Germany game was. The last time we did this on a show, we went 6 of 6 on PrizePicks and picked up the 25x. So I am really hoping that we could do that again. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engelman. I hope everybody's got their red on today. Liverpool representing Manchester City today. It's going to be a great day in the Engelman household. But first, before we get into any of this pick'em stuff, we need to have a conversation about breakfast foods at McDonald's. I got Jordan producing this. I see him take a bite of something. I say, Jordan, what are you eating? He says, McDonald's. Now I'm excited because no matter what anybody's about to, if you say that you don't like McDonald's breakfast in chat, I will never trust your opinions again. Universally exceptional breakfast for fast food. Jordan got the bagel sandwich over the English muffin version. And I can't get behind that in any way. S-tier breakfast is the English muffin at McDonald's. Bagel? A California bagel at McDonald's. I can't think of a worse choice to get on that breakfast sandwich. So, chat, I need you to let me know here. Am I right? Is the English muffin just the universal correct answer here? Yeah, Trey Jordan knows it. It's English muffin or nothing. English muffin or nothing. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Bagel in California? You guys don't have a single good bagel anywhere to speak of. Those things only exist east of the Mississippi. Nah, no, I don't like it. I'm okay with the biscuit, but that's got some wiggle room here. Sometimes that's like way too dry and not good. I can handle the biscuit. Totally fine with the biscuit answer. English muffin is the correct answer. There is not another correct answer. And anybody, Milton, McDonald's is trash altogether. You're inside. You're insane. That's craziness. Totally fine with the McGriddle as well. Not my personal favorite. It's a textural thing, but obviously delicious. I don't want anybody to think that it doesn't taste exceptional. Egg McMuffin with hash brown patty inside and mayo. Okay, Billy, that's not that I don't agree. The real answer, you guys want to change your game when you're getting when you're getting a breakfast sandwich at McDonald's? I've talked about this on the show before. The sausage McMuffin is the best thing that you can get, but the key is going double sausage, American cheese on the English muffin. This is the way to do it. The double sausage creates the perfect bread cheese sausage ratio. When you get it with just the single patty, it's a little bread dominant. The second sausage patty is what saves it. So, for those of you that are looking to pick up some McDonald's breakfast this morning, I've just given you guys the hack. This is the answer to the question of what should you get? You should get a double sausage patty. Could you imagine if never mind. Ooh. All right, Nate the Great's going to add bacon. The hash brown edition is fine. No issues there. But yeah, I'm a double sausage guy. All righty, I had to get that done because I'm truly disgusted with Jordan's breakfast choices here. Bagel, insane, just unflavored crap bread. How you guys doing today? I hope you're having a great weekend. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We had that we got off for Thanksgiving. You guys got some football back again for Friday, and now we're into the weekend. A lot of people pitching adding mayo to the McMuffin. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Mayo is delicious. Haven't thought about it though, but I might have to. If I could do like Chipotle mayo on that breakfast sandwich, I think that's where we'd want to be. But where we really want to be, honestly, is on OddShopper. It's the greatest tool that exists of anything that we have, DFS, sports betting, whatever you guys want. This tool is the answer to everybody's question of how could I be better at sports betting or pick'em sites. It just works. And it's not even just that it works and we come on here and we say that it works. I mean, the amount of testimonial type coverage with just people posting Pickett screenshots and showing it has been great. We have all of the results of every single pick we've ever recommended via OddShopper in our results table. You can pull that up, go to any individual sport you want, set up whatever sort of guide rails you want. The OddShopper rating has to be this high, or the win rate has to be this high. What EV has to be this rate. Whatever you're setting it to, we have all of that data. It's very easy to find. It's very easy to see. And pretty much however you slice it, we end up showing positive EV. You can see the NFL one right there across, what's that, 1,400 picks, basically, 5% ROI. It's nice. Maybe you need to set a couple guideposts, maybe bump that OddShopper rating up a little bit. Do that, Jordan. Scroll up a little bit. OddShopper rating set to, let's set it to 5. And let's set the EV range to 5 as well. You got this. There we go. Preview results. What do we get? Scroll down. 5.3% EV across 7,000 bets. You could chop that up however you want. You're going to end up with really good answers. Or just follow Greg Ehrenberg on Twitter right now. He's doing a bankroll challenge. Started at the beginning of the NBA season. Turned $100 into well north of 400 at this point. That's in 30 days, something along that neighborhood. Not too much more, right around there. Turned $100 into 400. Just betting everything that shows up in OddShopper that's recommended to take. That's how simple it is. It's a couple button clicks. But that's what we're doing right now. Now, we might not be able to just find NFL plays, which is fine. I've got a bunch of stuff in front of my face right now. The first place that we're going to go, we're going to build out a PrizePicks card. So we're going to head to the Pick'em Optimizer. We've got PrizePicks open. Now, if we just want the 6 best plays, I have it right now on my screen as a 14% EV. For Jalen Green, Isaac Okoro, Tatum, you get Tommy Tremble, Towns, Campaign. That's a lot of NBA. And that's okay. We're going to see if we can build one NFL first. And if we have to loop in some of these big positive NBA plays, we can do that. So I'm going to clear everything out on PrizePicks. We're going to hit the NFL drop down. We don't have a ton here, but we have enough. You get Tommy Tremble receiving yards. We get Austin Hooper under in receiving yards. We get Lamar Jackson under in passing yards. Cam Akers under in rushing yards gets us to 4 picks. Adonai Mitchell over receiving yards. And then finally, Tyler Boyd under receiving yards. Those 6 plays using OddShopper, at least for me on my screen. Jordan, you already clicked the button. That's good. You can click the button. This is all you need to do. Okay, we have the same thing. 6% EV. That looks great. All you have to do is click the Bet Now button. It immediately takes you to PrizePicks, loads up your entire card, and then all you have to do is just choose how much you want to put on it. It couldn't get any easier than that. So I'm dropping the classic 40 to win 1,000 because you get 25x for going 6-0, 2x if you go 5-1. 0.4x if you go 4-2, but we're not going 4-2. We're not even going 5-1. We're going straight 6-0. I always really want to put $1 down on the exact mirrored card for the days where I just take the full beating just to try to save it. But for now, could that have been any easier? I mean, this is the most simple thing that we can do. Immediately just take the top 6 plays, click the button, and enter it. You don't have to worry about waiting around or like missing out on a line. You can get this stuff immediately. Immediately. That took what, 10 seconds from the time you wanted to put the lines in, click the button, and enter it? It doesn't get any easier than that. But what we can do, and obviously you don't have to just take straight NFL plays. That could have been the best 3 NFL plays and the best 3 NBA plays. There's college football or college basketball or NHL that pops up. It's all there too. You don't have to build sports specific cards, but I'm here on an NFL Sunday. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. If we're going to be talking NFL, we might as well build NFL. But we don't have to just build it on PrizePicks either. We can take a peek at Underdog. Now, when I play at Underdog, before I even go to OddShopper, the first thing I want to do is actually pull up Underdog and find out, do I have any boosts or bonuses? Because sometimes I open up my Underdog and it's just like, well, we have a 75% NBA boost for you today. And it's like, well, okay, well, that's going to completely change everything that I do for what I build. So I'm going to try to go to Underdog right now and see if there are any boosts hanging out there. And hey, chat, if there's no boost, Jordan, that's lovely. Chat, if you guys see any boosts or free squares or promos at Sleeper or Betr or Pick 6, feel free to let me know because we could take a look at those as well. You are correct, Jordan. I do not have a boost for Underdog, which probably lets me think that we're not going to build an Underdog card, but we do have one lone NBA play that is at 3.4% EV. That might be our saving grace here. A 5-pick flex card on Underdog using our 5 best plays is a 4% EV play. We do get 3 NFL plays and 1 oh my God, what words am I using? 3 NFL plays, 2 NBA plays. By the way, let me drop that PrizePicks link into chat. I just realized that we didn't do that. I got it here. Because I want you guys to tail this along with me. If we go 6 of 6 tonight, you guys better be hitting me on Twitter and letting me know that you tailed as well. Because these are the 6 best NFL plays that exist in Underdog, or sorry, in OddShopper right now. But we're going to get an Underdog card as well. So I'm going to get Tumani Kamara under 9.5 points. I'm going to get Javonte Green under 8.5 points. And now we're heading to the NFL side of this one for 3 more picks. What's this dude's name again? I still don't know how to say it. Whatever Jordan told me last time, I think chat shit all over it. Yeah, Yoshi Voss. Yes. Classic pronunciation here. Andre in again. We had him last time, part of the win, right? That was part of our dub. So you know what happens when we get Yoshi Voss into our lineups. All we do is print money. Adonai Mitchell, over 35.5 receiving yards. And finally, Joe Mixon, over 19.5 receiving yards. 5-pick card into Underdog. Let's get that one locked and loaded. And I will drop this link in chat as well. So if you guys want to tail on PrizePicks, you can. If you want to tail on Underdog, you can. We're going to take a look at Sleeper and Betr in a second. I know we have the Black Friday deal on the screen. Jordan, I hope I'm not screwing you on this one. We have the Black Friday deal on the screen for the DFS side, but I'm not talking DFS right now. We're talking OddShopper. You're going to get a half hour after this of DFS, and then from 10 to 1, it's all deep dive into this NFL slate. Jordan knows where I'm going. So smart. The best producer in the industry, folks. 75% off OddShopper right now for a month using the promo code THANKS. This deal goes away tomorrow. So you want to make sure that you're getting in right now. But if you play on pick'em sites, or if you're in a legal sports betting state, you're crazy if you don't want to take advantage of this. To get it for 75 off for a month, you're going to finally understand what it is we're talking about and why this tool is so great, so easy, and so beneficial for you for whatever you're doing. If you're just on the pick'em sites, you're going to basically be doing exactly what we're doing right now. Maybe you have your own picks and you want to use the portfolio EV tool to grab like a couple extra plays. You could do that. You could just take this blindly, which is sort of how I recommend it. Obviously, use your discretion, but to sign up and get this, we're showing it every day. Greg's doing it constantly. He's showing how to build a bankroll. You don't have to have a lot of money to get started here. And we can show you how to build that out. The promo code THANKS is going to get you 75% off. The link is in chat. There's another one in the description of this video. But if you're interested of the sports betting side or the pick'em side, you're not going to find a better tool anywhere else in this industry. I can confidently say that. I've seen them all. I've checked them all out. Nothing is as easy as OddShopper right now, and we have every single result to prove how good it is. It's not like we're just telling you and we don't let you check out everything we've ever recommended. It all is here for you to see it. You could parse that out however you want, find every single little niche that you want to try to attack. We've got the data for you to see if that's worth your while. And more often than not, it is. Let's see. Ryan Wagner. Josh, you know how you create a parlay, then you look at it and you think, let me type in 100,000, and you look at it and it says 90 million. Josh, would you retire if you won that amount of money? I mean, retire is like, would I do this job anymore? No. Via con Dios, Stokastic, if I hit for 90 million or win Powerball or something like that. But retire? No, I would never stop working. I just don't know what I would do. I would have the ability to do whatever I wanted at that point, but not working wouldn't happen. I would still have some sort of job or business. I don't know what that would be. I mean, for a year or so, I'm just probably going to drink every drop of booze that I could get my hands on. I'm probably going to experiment with some illegal substances. I'm going to bounce around the entire globe in a private jet. I'm going to live it up for a bit, but I'm going to come back and get some work done. I want to open a quesadilla restaurant. That'll be good. That'll be good. I don't know what else I would do. I like soup. Maybe it could be one of those like half KFC, half Taco Bell joints where it's just soups and quesadillas. I'm not saying it's a great idea, but I am saying that I would want to eat in that place every day. And a lot of people in my life have that same affliction. It's called the munchies. It happens every day. If I could eat a quesadilla and have some soup, that would cure what ails me. Brandon Henson, I don't appreciate you saying Dilla's like that. That would be the name of the restaurant. Souptastic? Okay, we're getting warmer. Mile High 5280 says, I just got here and have no idea what's going on, but I like it. I mean, I would definitely never play DFS again if I won that kind of money. Never. No shot. Would never enter a contest again. I don't need that kind of stress in my life. I would still be betting a lot. I'd probably be playing like 2 hands of blackjack with Dana White for 100,000 a pop just to see if I could feel again. I want a half Pizza Hut, half Burger King. Okay. I mean, I could get down with that. Honestly, what we really need is essentially just like an airport, but a food court of fast food, but like not the garbage way. Like I want Burger King, but I want them to take their time. I want a Wendy's in there. I want them to take their time. McDonald's, Subway, Taco Bell, Popeyes. Why don't we have a food court of just those, but like almost like the priority version of their foods? So you can go up and get your sausage McMuffin. You go get whatever it is that you would want at Burger King. None of it's really any good. You could pick up, I don't know, Taco Bell, beefy 5-layer burrito or something. Most people are going to say crunch wrap, but that's not going to be me. Who wouldn't want all of those things? Andrew Biggs, hold on. I'm not trying to say that I want to pair soups with quesadillas. I just simply really enjoy soup and really enjoy quesadillas. And I would like to eat those two things frequently, and I would be happy if they came from the same place. I am not advocating for quesadilla plus soup, although it is kind of just like a grilled cheese with different bread. Just saying. All right. I have rambled enough. You guys have better be signing up for OddShopper using that promo code. Thanks. We got to build a sleeper card now. Oh boy. If we can get this sleeper card built in the next couple seconds, we're going to have massive EV because of that John Collins card. Now, the problem with sleeper, unfortunately for us, is that you can't share sleeper on the screen and there's no share button so that you can tail this card along with us. But I can immediately see that if we can build this fast enough, we need to get this John Collins play in a card as soon as we possibly can, because that is sitting at 11% EV. What is the total EV on this card if we build a 5-pick card on sleeper right now? It's got to be massive. Yeah, 11%. We could eat negative EV plays for lunch, and it doesn't matter. And there's a bunch of like, they call them tacos on PrizePicks. I don't know what they call them here, but Joe Burrow is discounted. Lamar Jackson is discounted. You guys can get into those as well. But if you take Ben Simmons under 6.5 points, Kristaps Porzingis under 6.5 points, John Collins under 10.5 rebounds and assists, our boy Yoshi from the Bengals, Andre under 16.5 receiving yards, and then Will Levis under passing yards. That's an 11% EV play on sleeper. And again, it can move so quickly. You immediately have everything. You have your calculations. You have your expected win rate. Finally, I'm going to hop to Betr because we got to make sure we see all of them. Now, I can share a Betr link. This Betr link is giving us a 10% EV card, and our boy Yosh is a part of this one as well. He is everything we need today is in our boy Yosh. Foster Moreau gets a card. Now, I can share this one in chat, so I'm going to be able to drop this one once we get it locked and loaded. Foster Moreau over 15.5 receiving yards. Josh Allen over 23.5 rushing yards. Shout outs to Josh Allen, by the way, for getting engaged to an absolute dime. Jordan, thoughts? The hell is her name? The hell is her name? See, I can't remember it because she's not my wheelhouse because she's hot and young and would never speak to me. What is that girl? She was in Pitch Perfect too. The hell, Haley Steinfeld. Haley Steinfeld. So shouts to Josh Allen on that one. It's a great pull for him. You looking at pictures, Jordan? All right, Jordan's not going to be able to do any producing for the next 5 minutes. He's looking at pictures of Haley Steinfeld. So whatever's on the screen is going to have to stay on the screen until Jordan is able to clean himself up. All right, we got the picks in for Betr. Yoshi, Moreau, Jalen Green, Josh Allen, Derek White, 5-pick card. 10x your money if you hit all 5. 2.5x your money if you go 2 and 1. Card in. I will drop that link into chat the moment I'm able to sign off of this show, which is coming in a minute or two. But ultimately, guys, I want the takeaway for this half hour to be 2 things. The first of which is using the promo code THANKS to sign up at OddShopper and make your life better on the sports betting side and the pick'em side. Look, eventually, every state's going to have this legal, probably on both sides. Maybe they swallow up the pick'em sites, maybe they don't. But if you're deep in the DFS game, you're going to want to be deep in here too. I don't want to say that it's too late, because it's not. There's a ton of value when we're showing it in OddShopper. But eventually, this is going to get harder and harder. Get in now. Bank this money while you can. Build yourself up a bankroll. You don't need a lot of money to start. The second thing that I want to leave you guys with today, actually, I have 3 things. The second thing I want to leave you guys with today is back to breakfast. Do not get a bagel at McDonald's. It's English muffin only. That's what we've learned for today. And 3, for anybody in here, and I bet it's not a lot of people, considering this is an NFL show at 9 o'clock in the morning. But if any of you people are Manchester City supporters, I hope you have a dreadful Sunday. From 11 o'clock Eastern time to 1 o'clock Eastern time. I hope you have a terrible, terrible day. Cry into your hands, do whatever you need to do to deal with your emotions. But by 1 o'clock, you're just going to know it's not going to be your year. Banner's going to Liverpool. Guys, thank you for being here. I'm going to go get some McDonald's now because I've talked about it so long that I absolutely have to have this for breakfast today. What do you mean, you people? What a great line. What a great line. Guys, Greg Ehrenberg coming up next. Building lineups in the single lineup sim. The single lineup sim is OddShopper to me on the DFS side. It's easy to use. You can get your hands dirty if you want to. You get to see all the advanced stats and all of the data if you simulate that lineup. It's the perfect way to build lineups on NFL Sunday. I truly believe that. You can do what you want, and you can find out if it's any good first and make changes. 10 o'clock, Laffy, Ben, NFL Deeper Dive. They're going to go for an hour and a half. Then you get live before lock from 11:30 till 1. The coverage around here doesn't stop, but it stops right now for me. Don't go anywhere. Stream stays going. Greg's coming up next. Good luck, everybody. Go Liverpool. Go McMuffins.
What's that? Oh. Good morning, everybody. It is time to start building some lineups this morning. Josh just covered some of the pick'em and whatever else he was talking about this morning. Me now, I am absolutely freezing cold. I'm ready to go over some of our projections with you guys, build some initial lineups using the single lineup sims, and also let you guys know, and first, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, that if you've been looking to take advantage of our Black Friday sale, today is the final day. And so if you're going to get in on this, you probably want to do it before the start of today's NFL slate. The link down below in the YouTube description box. Sign up with the promo code Black Friday through that link and get 50% off any core or max package that you guys want to sign up for a single sport. So if you want to check out football, you probably want to do that in the next couple of hours before the slate locks. Sign up, promo code Black Friday, 50% off weekly or monthly package, whichever you choose with that promo code. If you want to check out an NBA package, same deal, link down below in the YouTube description box. But let's start building some lineups out for the slate. And before we do, though, let's look over the projections, Jordan. So pull those up on screen and let's see what it is that we have for the top projected players at each position. And I also see that we've got some super chats coming in, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions for us in the Discord as well. And any package you sign up for at Stokastic does include access to the Discord channel. And for people asking about the robe, number one, it is very comfortable. Number two, it is also warm when it is barely over 20 degrees in New Jersey right now. And then also, I didn't realize until this morning, but all of my sweatshirts are currently in the wash. So this was all I had to wear to make me not freezing, but also pretty comfortable. Let's start here with the quarterbacks, Jordan. And yes, star-studded quarterback slate where we have, 5 quarterbacks projected for over 20 fantasy points. Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow. In that order, that is the projected ownership, projected fantasy points from top to bottom. So Lamar Jackson leading the way just under 23 fantasy points. Then Joe Burrow, the final one, who's projected for over 20 fantasy points. And if you look at the pricing, there is one of these guys who stands out where Justin Herbert is only $5,600. Every other quarterback who's projected for at least 20 fantasy points is north of 7K. So as a result of that, if you would sort here, Jordan, by the ownership, you will see that Justin Herbert, I believe, is projected as of right now to be the most popular quarterback that we've had on any main slate this year. Over 20% ownership going to Justin Herbert. There was one slate where Jaden Daniels, I think, was projected for 17 or 18% ownership. Not quite this mark, though. So Justin Herbert, the most popular projected QB that we've seen on any slate this year. And then as a result, the other QBs just don't come in anywhere nearly as popular as they might otherwise be. Anthony Richardson is 11% owned. Nobody else even much more than 7%. So Justin Herbert, real chalk at quarterback. That is going to be a decision point for us. So now let's go and look at the running backs. Yeah, so now running back, one running back who's projected way better than everybody else right now. That is Alvin Kamara, 24.06 fantasy points. Then you've got Chase Brown. He is also pulling over 20 fantasy point projection alongside Kyren Williams and Bijan Robinson. Then you've got Saquon Barkley at 19 and change. Then you've got Chuba Hubbard, Joe Mixon, Breece Hall all over 18 fantasy points. So if you guys look at the ownership here at running back, no real massive surprises based on those projections. Alvin Kamara, he is 42% owned. He's massive chalk at the position. If you're looking to go cheaper, Chase Brown, he's 38% owned. And Chase Brown is just not priced appropriately. He has been so involved in the Bengals offense ever since the injury to Zach Moss, where he's on the field just about every snap. He's involved in the run game. He's involved in the pass game. He's like $1,000 to $1,500 too cheap. So Chase Brown at $6,200. Great option for sure. Then you got Kyren Williams, 21.5% owned. Bijan Robinson, 18.7% owned. And no other running back really pulling in all that much ownership. So that's what we have at running back. Now at wide receiver, Jordan. And one thing that we've seen pretty consistently at wide receiver this year is that the top wide receivers just don't project nearly as well as the top end running back. So AJ Brown is in for 21.85 fantasy points. And one thing of note here is that we do currently have Devonta Smith listed as out in our projections. So the current status of Devonta Smith is that it's kind of up in the air. Here's what we heard from Ian Rappaport late last night. I'm reading the tweet here. Devonta Smith listed as questionable with a hamstring injury, may work out on Sunday to see if he could go, but sources tell him and Mike Garofalo that there is not a lot of optimism he'll be out there. Philly will leave it open. So he's not officially out, and he is officially questionable, but the way that we're seeing the reports worded, it seems like it's more likely Devonta Smith sits than that he plays. As a result, that's why we have Devonta Smith projected out and for 0 fantasy points. That's why AJ Brown projects as the top wide receiver on the slate, but is definitely something that we're going to need to keep an eye on for the next few hours here. Then underneath AJ Brown, we've got Justin Jefferson. He's at 19.5 fantasy points. Shamar Chase nearly at 19 fantasy points. Then Puka Nacua, as well as Nico Collins, each a little bit over 18 fantasy points. And now if we go and look at the ownership at the position, no real massive chalk. We don't have a single wide receiver projected for more than 20% ownership. You got Ladd McConkey at 18.5%, and A lot of that's to do with the Justin Herbert ownership, where people are wanting to play Justin Herbert at his price point. And then Ladd McConkey, clearly the number one wide receiver over there in Los Angeles. He projects well, not outstandingly well or anything like that, but just because of how well he's going to be correlating with Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert projecting really well. You got Ladd McConkey is the most popular wideout on the slate at 18.5%. Then you got Puka Nacua at 17.5%. You got T. Higgins at 16.5%. AJ Brown right around 14.5%, as well as Calvin Ridley. But once again, ownership pretty spread out at wide receiver compared to the tight end, compared to the running back and the quarterback position. But then finally at tight end, where another position where it's kind of spread out, but this is because there's just so many good tight end options. I think this is one of the best tight end slates of the entire season, just because there's no shortage of guys to be looking to at tight end. We've got Trey McBride, Taysom Hill, Dallas Goedert, Evan Ingram, Cade Otton, TJ Hawkinson, Will Dissly, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, all projected for over 10 fantasy points. That's about half of the starting tight ends on the entire slate projecting fairly decently at relatively good price points at tight end, because only one of those guys is more expensive than 5K. So lots of good guys to be looking at tight end. I don't have any issues making double tight end lineups this weekend. And then if you go and sort by the ownership at tight end, because some of these guys look solid, you've got 17.8% ownership going to Dallas Goedert, 12.9% to Dissly, 12.6% to Taysom Hill. It's just pretty spread out. Dallas Goedert, assuming Devonta Smith is out, it does appear he's going to be the most popular tight end on the slate, but it's not problematic in terms of ownership at 17.8%. So there's the groundwork for everything we're looking at for this slate. And now let's start building out some lineups and looking at some of the lineups that you guys have built in the super chats that we have left here. We've got one here. This is all right. So this is actually a question about somebody's year-long league. Riley says, in a redraft league, he's got the number one seed locked up. He wants to know, should he trade DJ Moore for CeeDee Lamb? Yeah, in general, I prefer CeeDee Lamb to DJ Moore if that's available to you. Now let's see the next question here. Here's a lineup. This one is from Mike Corsetti, and Mike Corsetti, I think this is a DraftKings lineup. Let's build it as if it's a DraftKings lineup. If the salaries don't quite fit, then we'll go and we'll make it a FanDuel lineup instead. But he has gone with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Then we've got Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Calvin Ridley, Adonai Mitchell, Nico Collins, Cade Otton, Mike Evans, and then the Patriots defense, rounding out this lineup here for Matt Corsetti. So let's see how this lineup ends up looking in the Sims. Yeah, Patriots defense, $200 left on the table. No real big deal there. And so he's got Baker Mayfield paired with Mike Evans, as well as with Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is not projected for a ton of ownership. I have a feeling he's going to come in more popular than what his projected ownership is. Lineup looks fine, 17.3% sim ROI there. I do have concerns that Bucky Irving is projected for right around 10% ownership, that because he played so well last week, we see one or two of these guys every Sunday who they're projected because they just, from a data perspective, they don't have an outlandishly good fantasy points projection, but because they played well the week before, the field gravitates towards them. I think Bucky Irving could come in at 2x what his projected ownership is. So I wouldn't be surprised if that 10-ish% ownership actually ends up being like 20% as we get closer to lock. But as far as your lineup there, Matt, I have no issues with it. It looks solid. Adonai Mitchell is somebody who I'm kind of surprised isn't more chalky at the wide receiver position with Josh Downs out. But yeah, that is a lineup that I think is pretty solid looking. Matt Sheets, this is Coach. Has been a while. You guys rock. Good luck today. And yeah, if you guys aren't familiar, Coach has won, 2 millis this year? If it's more than that and I've forgotten. But shout out to Matt, who regularly watches the shows. He's a sub to the site. And yeah, multiple-time Millie Maker winner. Next super chat here, it is from Christian Smith, and he has built a Kirk Cousins lineup. This is for DraftKings. He's got Kirk Cousins stacked with Bijan Robinson and Drake London. The other players in the lineup, it is also Bucky Irving. We've got Ladd McConkey. We've got Mike Evans. We've got Will Dissly, Adam Thielen, and the Jets defense. I'm kind of surprised that the Panthers didn't look to trade Adam Thielen at the trade deadline. He's probably not going to be back on the team next year, and he's an older player. So I don't know. Didn't seem like he fit in with what they're doing right now. Oh, already got that one built, Jordan. That was quick. Let's see what we have for the sim ROI. And then I'll also check to see what it is that we have from Discord for any questions. And also, I want to come and build this one did not come out well, negative 48.2% sim ROI. I want to try to build some Justin Herbert lineups just to see how it looks with him being massive chalk at the position. Points per dollar, I think Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense looks really good. I don't know that I'm going to get to quite as much exposure as the field is, though. Go back there. Who do you have at quarterback, Jordan? Somebody in the chat said the lineup was wrong. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. That's the direction he went. So I will say that looking at the lineups I've built so far, I don't have really any Kirk Cousins stacks. I have of my top 150 lineups, one of them ended up being a Kirk Cousins lineup. So with that in mind, I do think that it could potentially be a little bit hard to build positive ROI sim lineups with Kirk Cousins at QB. It is definitely interesting to get exposure to that game, but reduce the ownership by playing Cousins instead of Justin Herbert. But this in particular lineup just didn't rate out all that well. Let's see if there's anything we could do to change it. You know what? Actually, just do this. Could you just change Bucky Irving to Chase Brown, and then we'll change the defense? I want to see how big of a difference just this one swap makes by including Chase Brown. Because Chase Brown is showing up more for me in the Sims than any other player. What defense projects the best? All right. Yeah, just plug it in. I just want to see what difference that makes. So really all we did, essentially, we changed the defense, but that's not going to be a massive deal. But we swapped out Bucky Irving for Chase Brown, who just shows up much better in our data. I want to see making that one change. Yeah, it's still a negative lineup. I think that's primarily because of our data not really liking Falcon stacks. But you do see that it still looked a lot better just by having Chase Brown as opposed to not having Chase Brown. Price Productions wants us to build a FanDuel lineup, and then we also got Patrick Grimes with a DK lineup here. So let's plug in Patrick's lineup, and Patrick is going Sam Darnold at quarterback. Oh, no, still DraftKings. Sorry. I got a little ahead of myself there, Jordan. Yeah, so this one is a DraftKings lineup, and then I'll build one more DraftKings lineup where, since nobody's done a Justin Herbert one, I'll build a Justin Herbert lineup, and then we'll look at Price Productions FanDuel lineup. I want to see what a really, really chalky looking lineup, how that rates out in the Sims for this week. But first, we've got Sam Darnold, Chase Brown, Alvin Kamara, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, TJ Hawkinson, Trey McBride, the Jets defense. First look, I think this lineup's going to project really well. Relative to ownership, if you guys are looking to get away from Justin Herbert, Sam Darnold, Anthony Richardson at similar price points, those are my favorite pivot points off of Herbert. And Darnold is in this lineup. And then also TJ Hawkinson at tight end. It looks like he's fully up to speed now. Don't have to worry about any kinds of restrictions with him coming back from the knee injury like we were earlier. So I think this is the slate where we start to see a full workload for TJ Hawkinson. That just leaves him underpriced relative to where he's been in the past. So I think this lineup's going to look good, but let's see. And it does. Yeah, of all the lineups we built here, by far the best looking one in the sim ROI. So Patrick Grimes, yeah, I really like that lineup. I think it's a really strong looking one. And for everybody else too, and this is a question that usually comes up in the Discord chat, if you are looking to just know who's my favorite quarterback relative to ownership and stacks, it's Sam Darnold as of right now. We got Sam Darnold, 7% owned, $5,900, lots of good weapons around him. A little bit of public bias against him because his last few weeks haven't been nearly as strong as his first few weeks of the season. But yeah, Sam Darnold, I think, is a pretty good, relatively contrarian looking QB option. And now over on FanDuel, the lineup from Price Productions, he's gone with Lamar Jackson. And I also like Lamar Jackson stacks at slightly depressed ownership for this slate. He's got Lamar Jackson, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, Zay Flowers as the stacking partner with Lamar Jackson, Khalil Shakur, Jordan Addison, Zach Ertz, Calvin Ridley, Jets defense. Keep an eye on the weather in Buffalo for the Sunday night football game, because based on some of the pictures we've seen so far, it looks like it could be really poor conditions. It seems like it's supposed to clear up for later today. But that is definitely something that's a little bit of a potential concern for me in that game, with the Sunday night game being included on the FanDuel slate, that being Buffalo at home against the San Francisco 49ers. But let's see price productions lineup. Yep, looks good. 42.6% sim ROI. I say ride with it there, price production. So there's a good looking one over for FanDuel. Now, Jordan, go back to DraftKings. I'm going to build out a Justin Herbert lineup now. And intentionally, I'm going to make this lineup really chalky just so we could give the audience an idea of how is our data rating out the chalk for this slate. And that is going to start with Justin Herbert at quarterback, stacked with Ladd McConkey. And then at tight end, also plug in Will Dissly. So this will be a Justin Herbert double stack. Herbert's also shown a good amount of rushing upside in recent weeks, though. We didn't see that earlier in the year, but more than anything, I think that has to do with the plantar fascia injury that he came into the season with. So he was pretty hesitant to run. We didn't see more than 20 rushing yards from Justin Herbert until, week 9 against the Saints. And now you look at the last handful of games. Against the Ravens, 4 carries for 29 yards. Against the Bengals, 5 for 65. Against the Titans, 9 for 32. Against the Saints, 4 for 49. So there's a little bit more rushing upside to Justin Herbert. So I do think it's okay to make single stacks with him. Whereas earlier in the year, I only would have made double stacks with Justin Herbert. But these are, in my opinion, the 2 best stacking partners with him, Ladd McConkey and Will Dissly. Now at running back, plug in Chase Brown and Alvin Kamara. Once again, we're just playing the uber chalk in this lineup to see how the chalkiest of chalk options end up rating out in the Sims. Yeah, Kamara and Brown. Now at tight end, or sorry, not at tight end, at defense, let's see. What's a cheap defense? Just go Jaguars at $2,300. Yeah. Just to save us some salary. And now at wide receiver, plug in. What direction do we want to go? We've got 6,000 in average salary remaining, Jordan, or is that 5,000? All right, 6K. So we're not too pressed for salary here. Let's go to Calvin Ridley at 5,700. So if we have Calvin Ridley at 5,700. Now, for Colts value, I think both Michael Pittman as well as Adonai Mitchell look relatively good. Also, neither of them crazy popular right now. We've got 9% ownership on Mitchell. We've got 13% ownership on Pittman. Let's go to Mitchell at 3,900 and see what that does for the rest of the salary we have left and who fits in. Is it 8,500? All right, who projects the best? All right, so let's plug in A.J. Brown then. And we could upgrade the defense if we wanted to. I think we could go to the Cardinals defense projects a little bit better. But let's just run this as is and see how this is looking. This would be a really chalky build for GPPs. I think it still is going to look fairly decently. And we'll see. Yeah, 124.5% similar. So still really, really good. I do think if we made it a little bit more contrarian, we could probably get that closer to maybe like 150 to 175, but at least just the base chalk, it is overall looking pretty good in the Sims for right now. So let's go and build now a little bit more of a contrarian lineup, and let's look at, all right, what direction do I want to go here? So we've already built Sam Darnold lineups. We've built Justin Herbert. I really like Anthony Richardson, although he's not all that contrarian. Here's somebody who is not pulling a lot of ownership that's showing up well in the Sims over on DraftKings. So let's do this for a DraftKings lineup. I'm going to build a Will Levis stack, and then we'll build a FanDuel lineup afterwards. But let's go Will Levis. One thing we're seeing the field do a lot is go to Calvin Ridley, which I think makes sense. Calvin Ridley is underpriced at $5,700. I'm not going to tell you that Will Levis has been good. That's clearly not the case, but he's been less dog shit the last few weeks. So maybe a little bit of progression for Will Levis. Also, the pass attempts, they've been more robust in recent weeks. So we saw last week 24 pass attempts, the week before 31 pass attempts for Will Levis. So the willingness for him to throw the ball downfield, that's also led some gaudier passing numbers, 278 yards against the Texans, 295 against the Vikings, and just about every game on paper sets up as a pretty good passing game script for Will Levis because the Titans are always trailing in games. So let's make a contrarian stack and make Levis the guy with Calvin Ridley as a stacking partner, Jordan. And as far as other Tennessee pass catchers, nobody that really like all that much. I'm good with just making a single stack here with Calvin Ridley. Running back, let's go to Chase Brown. But instead of Alvin Kamara, let's go to Kyron Williams, who's got about half the projected ownership for a somewhat comparable projection. Yeah, so we'll get to Will Levis with those two at running back. Wide receivers now. We put Adonai Mitchell in the last lineup, so let's go with Michael Pittman instead at wide receiver. And I don't think we need a run back in this lineup. I would like Terry McLaurin, but there just hasn't been all that much volume to him so far. Or at least there hasn't been lately. Earlier in the season, there was a lot of volume going to Terry McLaurin, but we've seen a drop off in his target. So I'm not going to force a run back in this. Let's just do a single stack lineup, and then we'll build around with whoever else rates out well. So we've got Calvin Ridley in here. We've got Michael Pittman. Let's go Justin Jefferson next at 8,100. We do have A.J. Brown projected better, so any lineup that is A.J. Brown instead of Justin Jefferson is going to come out a little bit better in our sims, but we did an A.J. Brown lineup before, so let's go Justin Jefferson. And then at tight end, we'll go Dallas Goedert since we don't have A.J. Brown. Okay. And now let's plug in a defense, and let's go Colts defense at $2,800. We're not too hamstrung, not too hamstrung for salary here. So let's go Colts defense. And then what does that give us for salary left? All right, let's plug him in then. I don't love Brian Thomas, but I mean, he's who fits into this lineup. If I was really trying to hand build this and make this lineup look much better, I'd maybe go a little bit cheap. Sorry, what's that, Jordan? Okay, Taysom Hill then. Taysom Hill's interesting this week, especially in lineups that I actually do like the leverage point of playing Taysom Hill as opposed to Alvin Kamara. How many times have we seen Alvin Kamara be super, super chalky and he ends up getting, this lineup looks good, 127.1% sim ROI, and it's more of a contrarian lineup. But how many times have we seen a chalky Alvin Kamara get vultured by Taysom Hill? And Taysom Hill's workload, it was something Lofty and I talked about on our Friday sim show and that Lofty brought to my attention. But coaching change in New Orleans, and then a big uptick in overall workload for Taysom Hill. He had 10 targets last game, caught 8 of them for 50 yards. He also had 7 rush attempts for 138 yards and a touchdown and 3 touchdowns. We know he's capable of throwing the football. So Taysom Hill, I do think that he is a really interesting guy to play as leverage off of Alvin Kamara. Not crazy to think he could score touchdowns instead of Kamara. This lineup ended up rating out well, 127.1% sim ROI. So that lineup looks good. Let's go and build a FanDuel lineup now. And then we'll hand it over to the deep dive guys. So if you guys haven't done yet, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Helps us out a whole bunch in the YouTube algorithm. And it's only going to take a half second of your time to press those buttons there. So let's go and build for FanDuel. All right. Let's see. What's something on FanDuel that looks different than DraftKings? Still the quarterbacks that I get the most of are Sam Darnold, Anthony Richardson, and Justin Herbert over on FanDuel. We built lineups with all those guys. Let's go to Jalen Hurts instead. Let's go expensive at QB. Jalen Hurts also only projected for 4% ownership. And assuming Devonta Smith is out, we know we've got targets in the passing game that we like with Jalen Hurts. The question now is going to become, can we make it work from a salary perspective? So let's go A.J. Brown at wide receiver and Dallas Goedert at tight end, Jordan. We'll go double stack here. Yeah, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. All right, so now we're going to have to be kind of cost sensitive at other spots in this lineup. Although with that said, the FanDuel pricing is crazy, crazy soft this week. Let's go plug in the defense just so we know how much salary we're going to have left. Go to the Jaguars at $3,200, just the cheapest viable defense over on FanDuel. All right, and now we'll start. What does that give us for salary left? Yeah, I mean, the FanDuel pricing, it is just crazy cheap. So let's see who we could play at running back that isn't too expensive. Chase Brown is $7,300. And then some other options, if we wanted to go really cheap, Gus Edwards is 5,900. Ramondre Stevenson is 64. I don't know that we need to go quite that cheap. Let's leave the other running back spot blank for now. We'll circle back to it. So just go Chase Brown for now, Jordan. Yeah, so Chase Brown. Now at wide receiver, let's go to, let's see, Adonai Mitchell is 5K. So let's plug him into this lineup. Adonai Mitchell at 5K. And that should give us the necessary salary savings we need at some of our other spots. Yeah, so now one other wide receiver. Let's go Ladd McConkey. He's only 6,300 on FanDuel. Okay. So now we've got a little over 7K left. Running backs around this price range. Let's go Chuba Hubbard at 7,400 and see what that gives us for the flex. If we have to, we can make Chuba Hubbard somebody a little bit more expensive. But who fits in here, Jordan? Okay, perfect. So let's go Calvin Ridley at the flex then. Yeah, I like how that fit together. The real Juju wants to know, what about playing Taysom and Kamara together? There's definitely a negative correlation there. Yeah, this lineup came out really good, 153.7% sim ROI. I don't really have too much of an issue with Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara together. It's something that, while they are negatively correlated, there was so much workload to both of them. But once again, just to read off, Taysom Hill last week, 10 targets in the passing game, while also having 7 carries for 138 yards. And then if you look at Alvin Kamara's workload last week, it's not like his workload disappeared or anything like that. It was a little bit lower than what we've seen on some other slates. And part of that too, though, I think was just because the game was a blowout. So we still had 16 carries and 4 targets for Kamara. I think there's room for both these guys to get 20 plus touches though, or 20 plus looks at least. And it's not that you even need that from Taysom Hill, because his work in the red zone could be so valuable for the Saints, where, you know, if you get 15 looks for Taysom Hill in between his targets and rushing attempts, then he's still going to come out looking pretty good. And also, you got a fairly cheap Taysom Hill. So it's not ideal from a correlation standpoint to play them together, but I think there's enough workload for it to work out when you consider what it is that they ended up doing last week with Taysom Hill. But there we have it, guys. That is going to do it for my time here. Don't forget, today, the final day for the Black Friday sale. Sign up promo code Black Friday, get yourself 50% off any single sport core or max package. Link down below in the YouTube description box. Don't go anywhere, guys. Deep dive with Ben Rasa and Laffy. That's next. Then after that, it's going to be Eric Lindquist and Matt Kajeski taking you guys home on Live Before Lock, looking at any final news, their exposures, projection ownership updates. So check out all of that as you build your lineups. Hope you guys enjoyed the holiday. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you back on the channel tomorrow.
confirming.
It does make you wonder, though.
I have to think about that.
You're fine. Let me know if you come up with anything, please, because
I will.
I'm trying to think of what because they're not dumb.
No, but neither are we.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive Week 13. Dude, we're Thanksgiving week already. I mean, Thanksgiving's over. We're closing out week 13, and then we got what? 5 weeks left of football? Crazy. But we're here. 10-game slate, kind of the wheelhouse. It always feels good going into these type of spots. It's the week of the cheap quarterback for sure. Doesn't mean you can't go out there and try and jam Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson in a 50-point total game. Doesn't mean any of that. But Ben Rasa joining me as always. Dave Lockman, by the way. Happy to have you guys here. There's some really good sub 6K quarterbacks, probably more than we've seen, I think, through the first 12 weeks. Actually, definitively more cheap quarterbacks than we've seen all season.
No doubt about it. Changes the entire slate because generally, when you have pay down quarterbacks, the stack salary is less, and then your one-offs are better. Funnels you to pay up at running back, and we're going to go through all of that. So I like this. It's a nice sweet spot, a little 10-game action coming off of a Thanksgiving slate that was wildly entertaining. All is good in the world.
Matt Sheets just dropping a $20
Look at that.
chat.
He knows.
Yeah, Matt's the man.
Good people.
Thanks, Matt. You guys rock. Been a while. Good luck today. Coach S. Yeah, Coach S has been known to didn't he take down 2 millis in a week or something? Or
it was
month?
just he was doing some things, let me tell you.
Thanks, Coach S. Appreciate you. And thanks to all you guys hanging out this morning. If you don't mind, take a single second. Look, we're at 222 likes, Ben. All right. We got a nice 10-game slate. We're creeping up on 2K watching. That'll build. You should be elsewhere, but you're here this morning. So if you don't mind, atone for your sins, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It's free to do so. Takes a second of your time, and it goes a long way for us. We had someone complaining about the atone for your sins thing, Ben, but you know what? It's it's worked. And sometimes you got to say dumb shit just to get people to perk up a little.
My whole persona. Shy fan, guys, give us an over/under on the likes. So it's really early in the show, so I would have to raise the rake on both sides to combat that unknown.
And lower limits on this one as well.
Certainly lower limits. Okay, let's say 10 games, feeling good, but there's a I'm going to say post-Thanksgiving hangover is real. There's going to be a lot of people that are tuned out of NFL today. I'm going to go with a 747 and a half. Little airplane mode.
Yeah. Good thing. Never mind. Yeah, okay, so
don't you even.
What? You don't even know what I was going to say.
I know what you're going to say, and I know what you're not going to say either. I can see your decision tree in my mind. Don't think I don't know what's going on.
You don't know what I was. Nobody knows what I was going to say. We're at 317. That seems like a decent enough number.
Yeah.
I'll say 809.
Okay. I don't know how you came up with that, but sure. Yeah.
All right.
Don't even.
All right. Let's go. Happy you guys could join us. Let's make it happen. Fun 10-game slate for sure. And we're going to dive into it right now. I want to ask you something, though, before we actually go game by game. Are there any games that you look at and you just go, not really interested? Not to say you'll have none of it, but any games where you're like, that just doesn't stand out to me today.
I think it's one of the interesting things about the slate, typically, and you can see it on the left-hand side. When I say when you get into December, as if we're deep in the month, it's one day, but still. Typically,
you get, by the way, the moment it got close, it's freezing here.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful. Thank God. You don't see totals in the, look at it. Look at the totals. There's no 34.5 out there. There's no game that's just like triple level atrocious. So I hate to say this, but not really. I mean, I don't love Seattle and the Jets, but you're still talking about a team in Seattle that I've targeted a lot this year. You're talking about, still major weapons on the Jets. That's the lowest total we have on the board. And I could make a case for that. And the highest total, yeah, it's a great game, certainly NFL wise with Baltimore and the Eagles, but it doesn't stand above the rest for me. So that's one of the fascinating things about the slate. I'm not going to be doing the let's just move on style thing today where there's just a game that I have no interest in.
Neither am I. I'm with you. And to your point, when you look at these totals, first of all, the cold doesn't really matter because it's not all that windy anywhere, right? You don't have crazy like precipitation or anything like that. I don't know what this Buffalo game is going to look like. That was pretty crazy last night. But there's 5 of 10 games that are either in a dome. So 3 of them are in a dome. One's in Carolina. It's chilly there, but who cares? It's 50 degrees and sunny. And the other one's in Jacksonville. So you're right. It's December. It's cold, but it's not that bad. So let's make it happen. Here's a cold game to kick it off, Ben. 31 degrees and sunny in Cincinnati, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, okay. This is one of those games where there's one piece of just massive chalk. And even though it's a very difficult matchup against the Steelers, Chase Brown is underpriced. Like the pricing on this guy, given his workload, is not accurate. Okay. On DraftKings, specifically 6,200. Ever since Zach Moss went down, he's played 80, 87, and 83% of snaps. You saw him go out before the bye against a good Baltimore run defense. It didn't matter because he still got it done on the ground, or I'm sorry, through the air. We have to talk about Brown and get your thoughts here, because it's not whether or not he's underpriced or whether or not he's a good play. It's, are you eating this massive 40+% chalk today and getting with or above the field? Because he's super chalkiest player on the slate.
Chalkiest player on the slate, should be the chalkiest player on the slate. I think he's the most mispriced player on the slate. He would be my first click in cash. I think all those things are pretty much set in stone. Then you get to more nuanced positions like tournaments, small fields. Is he going to be like 80% owned? GPPs. How much is too much? Do you want to, part of this is risk tolerance. And I don't think that there's anything right answer with it where you say, okay, if you're okay. I talked about this yesterday with Kajeski on the college football show. If you say to me, under no circumstance do I want to get bageled today, well, crazy shit could happen. He could get hurt. He could play horrible. Then you have to kind of plan ahead. But if you say, you know what, I don't care about that, I just want to really open myself up, I don't think it's crazy to just really overhaul with him. What am I doing? I'll probably be slightly above the field. Obviously, he's going to be in some important lineups. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, he's the most popular player on the slate, and he simply should be.
Goody with the super chat too. Goody, what's up, dude? Always with the super chat etiquette. We appreciate that greatly around here. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, he always does. It's perfect, right? The guy doesn't mess up. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati could be fireworks or a total dud. I agree with that for sure. But I say that about every AFC North game every week. Like, it's just the way it is. AFC North is weird like that, especially you get into these cold months. Could be fireworks or a total dud. Chase Brown ownership is clearly a price point mistake. Correct. That's funny. I didn't even see this, but yes, definitely correct. Under on the chalk or double up, struggling with this ownership on DraftKings. All right, kind of perfect. I mean, we just
again, it's a lot of things can be true. There's no argument in my mind that he's mispriced, and with that brings the ownership. How much? It looks like it's going to be a pretty sizable amount, but he fits a lot of builds. And yeah, I think you certainly at the minimum want to get him in the portfolio, because you already highlighted this. His path to success is gigantic. Like, he could be phased out of the running game and he still could get there. Obviously, if he scores, now you're in super good position to get there. 18 targets in 2 games, 35 carries amongst 2 games. It seems like no matter what happens today, he's going to flirt with 20 plus touches, and that's a lot of volume for 62.
Absolutely. Travis Myers said every time, and don't worry, look, I'm not going to spend this much time on every player, but this is a huge part of the slate. Travis said every time there's a massive chalk player, he fails. I mean, it's not every time, but it's going to feel like that because we don't remember when they do well as chalk. But at 62,
Chase Brown.
What's that?
Chase Brown was mega chalk just a couple weeks ago, and he absolutely smashed.
You're right. Yes, we had a long conversation about that. That's right. But I will say, I like, if you have one choice, right? You're playing single entry 5-5-5, say, right? And you have one lineup, single entry.
I am playing that, and he's not in that lineup.
Okay. All right. Say you're playing 20 lineups. How much are you good with getting to?
60%.
Okay. So you still are okay getting over the
Absolutely.
field?
It's not like, oh, I'm making an adamant stand. He just happened to be.
Yeah. But you're also not jamming him in every lineup.
No, I'm not. It's not even that I don't think he deserves that. It's more, there were just some other builds. I think it's a really dynamic slate, and I had other builds that I really liked, and it just didn't include him.
I'm not either, by the way. Because this could be, he could have finished with like 17 and you
Yeah.
didn't need, and he doesn't kill you. I made the mistake last week. Really liked Kareem Hunt. I mean, that was just a wild mispricing on Kareem Hunt. At like, what was he, 5,600 or something? And ended up being terrible. Terrible. I got bailed out, came around, broke even, but that was not great. And I had so much Kareem Hunt. Are you on board though? Like, what are you doing with Chase and Higgins and the pass catchers for the Cincy side?
So I think it's tricky because part of me is not super interested in that, but not only are they great players, a lot of people are going to be like, okay, I got my Cincinnati exposure. It's Chase Brown. Like, I'm not going to deal with the passing game. And if Jamar Chase or Higgins explode, it's not that Chase Brown can't coexist, but obviously it's eating into some of it. There's only so much to go around. So you're getting a little additional leverage. Anytime you have a lightning rod for ownership, whether it's Kamara, and we'll talk about, some of the secondary Saints players, or Chase Brown, the other guys on those teams, I think just by osmosis are really interesting just because they can really cannibalize the top leverage in the chalk.
Trendy now said, I play the players and matchups, not the prices. Who cares that he's mispriced? Well, that's just
Yeah,
wrong.
you don't want to do that.
Yeah. That is,
I get it, but there's just more to it than that, to be completely honest.
well, it matters that he's mispriced because everyone has $50,000 cap or whatever it is, depending on where you're playing. It matters for sure. Like the amount of points that they score based on their salary is very important.
That's true. I can confirm that.
Not going to get into that anymore. Anyway, on the Pittsburgh side, Pickens is interesting to me, honestly. Like this is one of those guys that I keep coming back to every week. It's insane that this guy only has 2 touchdowns on the year. Like if you look over his numbers since Russell Wilson took over, he has like 14 red zone targets and 8 end zone targets, still only 2 touchdowns on the season. It's against a very vulnerable defense for Pittsburgh or Cincinnati. This game could be ugly. It could shoot out. You can run on Cincinnati too, which, leads me to think that Pickens, he's no guarantee to see 10 targets, but he's actually the one spot on Pittsburgh that I like quite a bit here. If you wanted to make an argument for Najee, that's fine. I have a little bit of him, but I expect Warren to get some work. Pickens is just so good that eventually that big game has to happen. Like he's just too good. He's the top target by far, clear top dog in this offense. So do I have a ton of him? No, but Pickens isn't somebody I want none of either. And right now I'm a little under the field. I might give him a slight boost I might give him a slight ROI boost today in the Sims.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be somewhat lost on this slate. At least he was for me. He's in no man's land. Not like the top tier of wide receivers, but he's not a pay down option by any stretch. Super talented player. Interesting game altogether. I think most people will be allocating to the Cincy side, and I really don't have anything else to say on Pittsburgh. They're one of the teams that I have the least interest in to begin with. I actually like Cincy in the game for what it's worth. But yeah, Pickens is always in play, and that's about all I have to say about Pittsburgh.
I don't blame you for liking Cincy bit here. Plus, coming off a bye, desperation mode.
I've said it's now or never. I'm not joking for Cincy since week 2. And they've lost like 80% of the now or never games, but
it's still now or never.
It's now or never, right?
Yeah, like, I get it. All right, Houston and Jacksonville. Really fun game. I might need you to talk me off the ledge here, okay? You're the worst person to do this, though.
Thanks.
No. Because of your affinity for this Jacksonville team.
Oh, okay.
Like every week.
I thought you meant in general. I was gonna say I'm a great off the ledge person.
You might push me.
No, I just say, look, it could be worse. Look at this. And then you're like,
he might not be 100%, but Trevor Lawrence, this guy's a dog. This guy will play when he can. We know that, right? Like he is always, and every time we think he's going to suck because he's playing through an injury, those end up being his best games. At 54 or 5,600, whatever he is, I have some interest in Lawrence today because the Brian Thomas, Evan Ingram stack it's so cheap. Like it's dirt cheap. Gabe Davis, who has led the team in red zone targets and ed zone targets, might not have done a whole lot else, but led the team in those two categories with and through the first 9 weeks when Lawrence was on the field. He's on the IR. Christian Kirk's on the IR. The Texans, don't look now, but the Texans have allowed more passing touchdowns than any team in the league this season. This team is not fully right, okay? Like we've seen that on both sides of the field. Jacksonville's been terrible, but they're coming off of a bye. I have interest in Lawrence with the Thomas and Ingram stack today.
I get it. It's really thinned out. What you're dodging mostly, I mean, there's a couple different ways in general that you have concerns. For a lot of teams, I think they're going to play well, but I don't know who it's going to be. Like the Lions, there's 8 guys that it could be. For Jacksonville, the biggest concern is they just suck, and they could score 10 points. Now you kind of have to live with that, but it seems in a competitive game at home, if they have a pretty decent output, Thomas and Ingram figure to be pretty heavily involved. And when you do stack it up, it's a pretty good situation. Jacksonville's been a team, you alluded to this, nothing's more frustrating when you get something right and wrong at the same time. I really didn't like Houston in the South. Thought it was going to be Jacksonville, and it is certainly not going to be. So it was this Houston team is not invincible by any stretch. They've got a lot of problems. I might force feed. I only did a very preliminary sim run, but I may boost Lawrence to try to get myself some Jacksonville exposure today.
I'm going to. And, well, actually, my guess is even if I don't get Lawrence, I'm going to get a decent amount of Brian Thomas and Ingram regardless.
Just as one-offs? Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any argument that Thomas at 5,500 is too cheap. Like, way
you're not
too
going to hear an
cheap.
argument from me, that's for sure.
And Evan Ingram looks nice too. I mean, you have to ask yourself too, like Dallas Goedert we don't know about Devonta Smith, but good chance he doesn't end up playing. There's some options there in that 4K range. Will Disley being another one of those. Hayden Hurst on the IR, but he was being phased out anyway. You don't have to love Lawrence. You don't have to do whatever you want, right? But I think you have to be considering a couple of these passing options or passing game weapons for Jacksonville, just given how thin they are. But they're also coming off of a bye. Ben, Houston's defense hasn't been good in the passing game.
No, listen, like I said, Houston has been exposed in a lot of levels, and they're going to have to fix some things. Jacksonville's Jacksonville, but price point, game exposure, I get it. I'm just playing with the lineup right now, and Brian Thomas, he fits a lot of different builds. He's a home run threat, and really, if he gets the targets, the production will follow, and it seems like on this offense right now, why would he not get the volume?
I'm not going to the backfield here, though.
No, the backfield, it's been, I mean, seemingly a mess all year. And I just, as an ETN guy, I don't know how you try to decipher this. It seems like a wildly unnecessary risk.
Yeah, I'm not super interested in figuring it out. Plus, Houston's been much worse in the passing game on defense. Now, this is actually one of those interesting, like, I don't ever force run backs, and I don't intend on doing it here. But this game does feel like it's kind of chock full of good run back options. So if you stack Jacksonville, the Nico run back looks real good there. If you happen to stack Houston, run it back with Thomas or Ingram, or you just go with a secondary stack, right? Like you don't even have to necessarily have quarterbacks in this game. I have lineups right now where I've got Nico and Brian Thomas, but no quarterback.
Little twist. I like it. Yeah, I always like the little mini correlation, especially with, I mean, this is a larger conversation. When you have cheap quarterbacks, you can get away with that even more because the quarterback could have a really good game, but somebody at 5,500 could have a really good game, and you actually want them because you needed that salary to go get Kamara or someone. So I'm fine with it. I like the pass catchers more than the backfield, and that is true for both teams. It's not a knock on Mixon. I certainly think he's playable at flat 8, but I find myself more interested in the pass catchers in this one.
One of the reasons for that for me is that I like a lot of these 7K running backs this week.
Yeah, it's opportunity cost.
I mean, Bijan's been getting how much work recently?
You don't have to sell me on Bijan, trust me.
I know. Alvin Kamara being another one. I can't wait to get your thoughts on that because that's a tougher one for me. Is it another 3 touchdown Taysom Hill game? I don't know. But there's a lot of There's a lot of that good 7K, 6K value at running back this week. I have no problem ever getting to Mixon, but I'm not in love with them here. Not in love with them. I like the passing game more in this spot. Last question. Are you good with stacking Stroud, like Houston stacks in this game?
I definitely think you could do it. It's not my favorite build in the world. I'm not sure if I'll get to him, but yeah, I mean, listen, it's still Jacksonville's defense, and Stroud has regressed. There's no doubt about it, but he's still shown the ability. He's got his main man back in Nico. I'm fine with it, but you could say that about a lot of stacks today, and that one is not at the top of my list.
Tennessee and Washington. Tennessee, 6-point dogs on the road. Washington, I don't want to say the wheels are falling off quite yet, but they're starting to shake a little bit, Ben. The lug nuts are loose on this Washington team, something you've been saying for a little while now. Austin Eckler's on the IR, so Jaden Daniels loses a pretty reliable pass catching option, especially since he hasn't really been successful deep recently. We can start with the Washington side here. What are you doing with McLaurin and Brian Robinson, which, by the way, Tennessee's run defense, like if you look at Tennessee on the season, if you zoomed out on their season, the defense hasn't been the issue. Sure, they got stomped by Detroit, but how much of that was just turning the ball over? And what did Detroit have? 200 total yards of offense in that game? Like,
yeah, it was a weird game. I mean, Tennessee,
they would have got smoked anyway. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is the defense has not been the issue. And they've been able to shut down opposing run games like we saw last week in Houston, where they got that upset win. I have some reservations about Brian Robinson today, unless you think he's going to be heavily involved in the passing game, kind of with Eckler ceding that role to him.
I don't. Not to say he can't contribute a little bit, but McNichols has filled in admirably at times, and they've been, particularly early in the season when Washington was just absolutely destroying people, McNichols showed a lot of promise in a lot of those games. You know how I feel about Washington. I think they're a fine team that's ahead of schedule, but I don't think they're anything special. And I think it's starting to show. You isolate their non-80, 90-yard touchdowns at the end of the game, it looks even worse. Not getting to a lot of them. McLaurin's always in play, but I like wide receivers in the same range ahead of him. He's 7,100. Robinson's in play. I like running backs in the same range ahead of him, and that is the story for me with Washington. Of course, they're playable, but every single player, Daniels included, there are 2 or 3 or 4 players at the same salary, similar ownership, that I just like better.
I couldn't agree more. Definitely tough to get to. Pot Farmer said Titans defense all day. A couple people mentioned the Titans defense. Yeah, I don't act Rancid too. I don't think Titans defense is anything wrong with that. I'll say this much though: ton of cheap defenses in play today, so I'm not really worrying about defense at all. Like there's probably 5 defenses under 3K that you could make a good argument for today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried. Defense is defense. Titans defense seems just as playable as most, and I get it.
You know, people in chat too talking about you got to get McLaurin the ball more. I agree. I don't really at 7,100 want to take that chance. He's a little bit too expensive. My favorite pass catcher probably from Washington is Noah Brown or Zach Ertz, the cheaper guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, but it's just like they're fine. I'm not in love with those spots either. And yeah, McLaurin, they do need to get him the ball more, but they're not. And I love Terry McLaurin. He's the man. It's just, it seems like most of these weeks he has like 6 targets and he's catching a 60-yard pass, and that's great, except the slight problem is what happens when he doesn't. It's really hard to keep that sustainable. So I just worry about him at his price point with that type of volume. And as much as I'm not a fan of Washington, they still are the rightful favorites in this game, and they could be playing from ahead, which furthers the strain on the volume that McLaurin could say.
Also, just a massive bailout from McLaurin last week in Dallas, if you had him.
The whole team is one giant bailout. Again, I know it sounds like I'm
that's
just
that's such a good point. You're right.
The whole it's been, and this is just what you get sometimes. They have continuously bailed themselves out. Some to their credit, mostly just to luck.
Other teams have bailed them out on other occasions too.
That's what I mean. And it's like that all gets thrown into the statistics, and I'm not, some of it you remember and you don't remember the fluky plays on other random teams. So it is noisy. I admit that. I just don't love what Washington is doing, particularly from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to do on the other side of this game with Tennessee? Because Will Levis has not been good, but he's very cheap. Calvin Ridley, a bit of a resurgence here. Resurgence isn't even the right phrase or term because there was just nothing. But I like Calvin Ridley today.
Resurrection.
Resurrection. Well, I'm saying as far as his time in Tennessee, he was never alive to begin with.
Isn't that what a resurrection is?
Well, no, that's bringing someone back to life. If you're saying he was resurrected from his time, prior to Tennessee, then yes.
Yeah, I don't understand, but he's
back.
Well,
to resurrect something, they have to have once been alive.
Oh, so you're saying he started out, he was dead.
Pretty much. What did he have? Like one decent game in week 1 and then nothing? Like he was just never alive. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying now. Okay. Well, he's alive right now. And he better be alive today because I need him in my lineups. I like Calvin Ridley. I like Levis. I think this is one of the cheap stacks that you can entertain. One of the things we see time and time again, it's not only it helps if your quarterback is good, but that's not the only prerequisite you need. And if you look at Will Levis, clearly his pick sixes, which are absolutely brutal to Tennessee, don't really have a huge impact in his output here. The volume isn't even great, but some of the games, pretty decent returns, and you're probably throwing in 3 to 5 to 8 carries, depending on what you get. So I'm fine with a skinny of Levis and Ridley. I have some of that actually, and I'm pretty content with it.
I am too. I told you before, I like some of these cheap stacks. Plus, one thing that we should probably mention here, right? Because a lot of times people get disgusted by certain players and certain teams. In doing so, stacking like a cheap team, especially a skinny stack or something. And Will Levis, look, he's not a great running quarterback, but he's not immobile either. He's not totally statuesque. Ben, you can have a decent game from them, but considering what it gets you to with the rest of your lineup, oftentimes that's enough. We've seen it multiple times, not only in the past, but this season, where like a decent, really cheap stack wins tournaments and they only end up with like 19 from the quarterback and their top wide receiver has like 19 or 22.
Absolutely. You're building a lineup and that's why, not to take this back, that's why price matters. It doesn't work where it's like, of course, do I want to go get Jalen Hurts? Yeah, I would like that. And I'm trying to, but you pay the price for that in wide receiver. And here it's the opposite. Ridley and Levis is a skinny stack that points per dollar could grade out really well. And all that does is set the stage for Kyron and Kamara and Jefferson or whoever you want to allocate that salary. Now, if your top end guys that you paid up for don't outscore the mid-range, you did nothing. Now you're in trouble because you need the raw points. But if they do, that's a winning formula. And so for me, it's pretty simple. I'm not going crazy. I'm a big fan of Tony Pollard. I'm not really getting to him right here. It's pretty exclusive Levis and Ridley.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? If you stack Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, or you stack Joe Burrow and the Bengals, that you need them to be the driving force behind your lineup. Whereas when you stack like a Will Levis team or an Anthony Richardson or even a Justin Herbert type team today, I could go on, a Trevor Lawrence team. You just need them to do their job.
Set the stage. You don't want them to lose it for you, and they could. Like when you play a bad quarterback like Will Levis, he might get 8. I've seen it with my own lineups many a times, and you're done. But if he doesn't, if he gives you a decent output, now you say, okay, I'm behind raw points wise a lot of other quarterbacks, 6-8 points, but they have a mid-range running back and I have Saquon. I can make up those points with interest. And that is really the 2v2s that you're playing, even if you don't realize it.
Trendy now says, I'm sorry. You're misguided, my friend. And I don't hold it against you. You guys are now arguing that price doesn't matter. Wow. No, we're saying the price matters so much that when you get to a cheap stack, they don't need to be great. How does this get lost in translation?
Tough world out there, man. But what can you do? I don't have time for that. Yes, if you don't think price matters, it should be very easy. Just play all the good players. I don't know how you're going to do that, but more power to you. I will be punting with Will Levis, not because I think he's the best quarterback, because I think points per dollar, him and we'll talk about Herbert, grade out really well, and it allows you salary elsewhere where you really need it.
Yes, it does. You know where else price matters?
That's Stokastic.
Yeah. You know where else price? God, that's a good. That is, I mean, just a grade A transition, right?
It was nice. It was good.
Pat myself on the back. No, for real though. If you listen, we still have so much football left in the season, and we still got the Black Friday deal going right now. 50% off any core or max subscription. Massive, massive discount. That would be like being able to, Ben, to play Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown for a combined $8,000 today, right? That's how nice. That's how good of a deal this is. In all seriousness, with the core or max, you're getting the sims, you're getting the single lineup sim, ownership, player projection, boom bust tool, top stack, the premium Discord, everything we have for any single sport, and you're getting it 50% off. And guys, look, Thanksgiving may be over, but do me a favor, pull up the NFL schedule going forward. It's insane the amount of awesome type of weeks that we're going to be having. Not only the fact that you're just going to be flat out building better lineups and making more money using these tools, and I'd say more than anything else, becoming a better player, perfect time for this, understanding how all of this works, how ownership and leverage and everything with the sims are giving you for a reason, all of that stuff, how that plays into every single slate. Massive, massive. Like the learning curve is not significant once you use the sims, when you use the single lineup sims, because it's doing the hard work for you. The stuff that I'm not smart enough to do on my own, right? I could give you every stat on every single player in the league. It doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to build good lineups. It's that simple, okay? I've made that mistake many times in the past. But when you look at this, look, bye weeks are almost over. That means that we're getting still Thursday, but then you're getting the Saturday slates coming up, right? So we've got Thursday plus Saturday slates. You've got Christmas Day football as well. You've got 2 weeks of Saturday slates, as a matter of fact. It's the best time to be playing DFS, Ben. And you're just going to have more of that like Thursday than Black Friday type stuff, except now it's going to be Christmas. It's going to be Saturdays, double two slate, double headers. Black Friday is the promo code. All you have to do, right, if you're trying to get in, 50% off week or month for core or max, where you're getting every tool that we have on the site for NFL. Link in the description. You'll see it down there, right, for Stokastic NFL. When you check out, simply use the promo code Black Friday. That's it. All one word, Black Friday. We'll knock 50% off straight away, and your first payment, 50% off, whatever you want. Huge discount. Huge benefits when you talk about what you're getting on the other side with all of these tools. But I get excited about this time of year for football.
It is exciting. It's awesome. And one of the things for me, just to further the point, this could be a me thing. When there are more slates, it's amazing. But the time to break down individual 2-game slates or showdowns or 3-game slates, it's just more and more and more. And just having the tools do that for me is so crucial, because for me, I'm college basketball. There's bowl season. The NBA is going on. It's just like, I don't have time for a Saturday slate to dive in on my own and do this. But when you have the ability to quickly and easily get the projections, the ownership, run the sims, do your process. I told you, how many times have I mentioned on the show, I can play Showdown now? It's because of this streamlined process that allows me to play more slates and play them effectively, where I'm not just saying, yeah, I'm going to play because I want to play, but I'm honestly donating and just hoping to straight get lucky.
Yeah. Absolutely. So check it out. Links down there, 50% off. So much football to go and so many additional days. The sims and the single lineup sim have every contest too. Like, even though if you wanted a 1 p.m. showdown game, yep, we've got it.
That's
so
next level.
All of that's in there. Anthony, I think, found the glitch in the matrix. He said, use the sims, get a winning lineup, get a free month repeat. So he's just rocking the Stokastic avatar.
That is the way to do it.
And then look, man, whatever way you want to do it, stokastic.com/HOF. Just rock the avatar, finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and get a free month if you want to do it that way, or 2 free months, or a free month of everything, or that beautiful ring with a 20K plus win. Just look at it. Look at that beauty spin. Look at her go. Oh, God. Yeah. And you all know what to do, Ben. You put it on your desk. That would have been perfect. Thanksgiving time, people come over, you just have it sitting on the kitchen table, and you look at everyone with disgust. You transform it into an elitist, and you
Smart.
look at them and you say, I'm better than you. Now give me the mashed potatoes.
You could put it in the turkey. And then
You
you're like,
could put
oh,
it-
what is this?
Oh, that's my ring.
I forgot.
How'd you
Yeah.
get this? Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
All
That'll
right.
cause some questions. Yes.
It will. Anything else for this one? I think we can move on. Let's talk about because you're not going to the backfield for Tennessee, are you? Arizona, Minnesota. I have a tough time with this game. Arizona is the type of team I cannot get right this season, and I'll tell you why. Because they don't know what's going on, and that's not even me disparaging them. It's like they have games, dude, where they go on and rout teams, right? Or they go in and they win really impressive games. They go on a nice win streak, and then they put up 6 in a crucial divisional spot last week against Seattle. I can't figure this Cardinals team out.
Yeah, I mean, neither can I. I keep betting against them in spots, and they're a Jekyll and Hyde team. Clearly, they've got some talent, and clearly, at times, I've been like, maybe they're the team in the West, like, because the Niners are a big mess. And then last week they go to Seattle. I didn't like that spot at all, and they look terrible. I don't know what to make it. Having said that, from a DFS standpoint, can't be ignored. They definitely have some things working. They've got players at each position, which is always an interesting situation. They're in a competitive game, so I think if you're looking for a tight end, I'm never going to push back on Trey McBride. He's not Bowers, but he's a damn good tight end. I don't think the price is super appealing, but it's not overly expensive that you can't play him. I'm not getting to James Conner. First of all, he killed me last week. That's not why I'm not playing him. I just don't like this spot against Minnesota. And I really do respect Minnesota's defense. So I'm going to bank that the Cardinals don't look overly impressive today. It'll be a share or 2 at most.
Oh, you're not buying into the James Conner extension narrative?
I can't say that I am.
You know, it's crazy too. I had a lineup that was live for, let's say, like a top 10. It wasn't going to win anything, but it could have, I think it was in the power sweep. So a top 10 in the power sweep's a nice day.
Yeah.
And I had Connor going, and I think it was JSN. And Connor played 70% of snaps, somehow carried the ball 8 times for 7 yards. How is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, I needed him. I was set up into the late games, and the Seattle game just completely flamed out. So it happens, but this is a tougher spot in my opinion.
It did flame out, except for JSN, who was fine. He had 20.
He's just good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. That wasn't a bad game from him. But Gino was popular in that spot. That was like trending towards being a shootout, you know, in the sense of it looked like a great game and it ended up being terrible. I'm with you on Connor, though. How about this? If I were to ask you, because clearly Chase Brown's the best down there in the 6K range, but there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 guys in the 6K range. I'll start from the bottom up. Najee, Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, Pollard, Aaron Jones in the same game, Connor, Chuba Hubbard, and Jonathan Taylor. Outside of Chase Brown, who are your top 3 in the 6K range?
For running backs,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty bad range. I honestly think, Aaron Jones, your boy, would have to be there. I'm not really looking to get to this range, but the volume was there. We discussed actually as we were in the projection meeting, kind of where Aaron Jones's carries go. And it does seem like if he can stay healthy, which is always elusive for him, they're going to lean on him at times. And so this is a pretty good spot for him. I'm okay with it, but I agree. It's kind of a weak range altogether, and that's not reflective of really anything. It's just how the pricing fell.
I did tell you eventually Cam Akers would go back to just not being.
We'll see. I mean, yeah, it's funny. As much as Arizona kind of is a enigma, I'm not sure I know what the Vikings are. I know they're a good team, but how good, I really don't know.
Me neither. I also am not convinced that Akers doesn't just get back into the mix this week.
That's what I mean. Like, I think there's not that much clarity.
I actually liked Aaron Jones more last week than I did this week. So
Interesting. Okay.
well, because it's really difficult Because I think there's a pretty significant opportunity cost with Aaron Jones this week.
That's why I don't like that range.
Agreed. I mean, honestly, I'd rather pay up a little bit more to a $6,900 Jonathan Taylor, or maybe even Kenneth Walker against the Jets. Like, that Jets run defense stinks.
I certainly would rather pay up, and then obviously, clearly, everyone would rather have Chase Brown. So it's just tough. He's in a sandwich spot, which is always nice because you get lost in there, but you're also objectively probably not in the best situation. So it's a double-edged sword.
Man, Jonathan Taylor has stunk, huh?
Yeah, he's not been good.
Oh, all right. So for me, I'll break it to you. I'll break it down to you like this. Trey McBride, my top option for Arizona, by far. Any argument there if you're looking at this team as a whole?
No, but it's more by default than me actively loving the spot.
Okay, fair. And then on the other side, I do think Hawkinson is fine here at 40. What is he, 4,300 or something?
I agree.
4,400. I think Hawkinson's fine. And anytime you want to get to Justin Jefferson in a spot like this, Arizona's run defense has actually been a lot better than their pass defense. You would have thought everything would be terrible this year. Hasn't really been the case. Justin Jefferson, I'm always willing to take some shots on. I do have a good amount of Sam Darnold stacks in this game, and I don't intend on pivoting off of that. Darnold, you're getting at 5,900. He's sub 6K. Has he been fantastic? No, but he's been good enough, and he has some really significant weapons. The only thing I hate about this is that, like, they actually, despite how involved and how good Jefferson is and how good of a tight end when he's healthy Hawkinson is, they still have other guys that come in and snipe touchdowns so much more than I prefer.
Yeah, you just have to kind of deal with that. I was going to ask you, like, are you getting like Addison?
I'm not, but I am getting the Jefferson and I am getting the some Hawkinson.
Okay, that's fair. I like Hawkinson as well, and Jefferson has been quiet, but when you're that good, I almost, it just is what it is. You kind of just say, okay, nothing's changing. It's Justin Jefferson.
Seattle and the New York Jets. Okay, fun game. I don't know what I want to do with this Seattle team today because the Jets defense, they have been better at home. I don't know what's happened to them this year. I know they've suffered some injuries, but all teams deal with injuries, and the Jets overall just they epitomize dysfunction, right? But there's something about Kenneth Walker today that interests me. He's a very boom or bust type player. So is, I think, this whole Seattle team, right? Like this whole Seattle team, look at last week as an example. But I'm not getting the much of him. This may be one of, usually each week I boost like 5 or 6 players that I want to get a little bit more of. Mm-hmm. And it's no different this week. Kenneth Walker may be one of those guys for me.
Man, I struggle with him. I really do. Part of it is, it's just like, I look at his, this just might be like a bias or something. I look at the majority of his games where he really had some really good outputs. And ironically,
they're playing from behind.
And those weren't the games. It would be like 12 carries and he had 3 touchdowns. And I'm like, well, that's no good. And then I look at some of his better output games and I'm just like, well, he didn't really do anything. So it's just like very ironic or like double-edged. I keep saying double-edged sword. I apologize. I don't know why I keep saying that, but I struggle with Kenneth Walker because I'm not sure what exactly I'm looking for. It hasn't been the game script where I'm like, oh, they're playing from ahead. He gets 28 for 130 and 2. It's like they're playing from behind. He gets phased out of the game, but he ends up scoring twice.
Like that Detroit game.
That's what I mean.
I know it's really difficult. But tell me if the slate ended and you saw Kenneth Walker had like 140 total yards and 2 touchdowns, tell me you'd be surprised. You wouldn't. It's just so hard to know when he's going to you never know when those games are going to happen with anybody, obviously. But with Kenneth Walker, I agree. It's even more difficult. This Jets run defense, though, they've been gashed all season long. I thought they'd figure things out. They really have not figured things out on the ground. Last week, fine, or 2 games ago, because they're coming off a bye against the Colts, but the Colts just can't run. Plus, they did it through the air, surprisingly. But Arizona, 150 yards allowed on the ground. Houston, 187. New England, 111. Pittsburgh, 149. Buffalo, 149. They've just really been carved up on the ground.
They have, and the other thing with Kenneth Walker, I know I'm speaking kind of like macro terms. To me, there seems to be limited correlation between when he explodes and when people think he is, which is the best type of player. Like, it's not like up Kenneth Walker explosion week, he's 40% owned. And then like, he's not going to be overly popular. And it seems like his games, the range of outcomes is gigantic. So when you talk like that, that crystallizes a really good tournament play. Because Kenneth Walker, I don't anticipate being popular at all. Do you?
No, not at all. You know, the only other element here is just Seattle's not a great run blocking team. So that plays into it as well. But no, I don't see him. What do we have him at for ownership? Let's see.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
We have Kenneth Walker at 6% ownership.
That's what I mean. Like,
but if you wanted to get some, you'd have to boost him. There's just no way you're going to get any Kenneth Walker naturally running the Sims, or really anything. You're gonna have to make some manual adjustments. So that's good. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to worry about getting any Kenneth Walker.
No, and you won't be. He's not going to define your slate if you don't play him. Most likely, he could just make the difference if you do. So I may sprinkle. The thing that I like about Kenneth Walker, when I make my lineups, if I don't get to him, I'm not going to be like, well,
definitely not.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, it is what it is. It's not a huge stand.
Also, just to be clear here, I still like in the 7K range, like I still like Bijan and Kyren and Kamara more than Kenneth Walker. I just think he's going to go totally overlooked.
Well, again, it's always, you have to think about it. It's not just like this, but I do this sometimes. So like, say Kamara's 35% owned and Kenneth Walker's 5% owned. That's a 1/7 the ownership. Does he beat him that often? The ratio seems askew. Like, Kenneth Walker's not that far behind.
Right. And Rick, Buntcake, who won the Millie, by the way, Stokastic sub, use the Sims tool, rocking the avatar, our guy. He won it on a week where I remember Breece Hall was ultra chalk and Breece Hall did not have a good game. And he ended up pivoting to James Cook in some of those lineups, who was essentially unowned.
He was
and
like
James
3%.
Cook had a massive, what's that?
Yeah, he was like 3% owned.
Massive game. So it does happen. We'll move on. I won't spend the whole show on this, but could you see a big, like, are there any running backs where you could see a big game today where it might not be the most likely outcome, but they're unowned or low owned?
Yeah, he would be towards the top of that type of list, admittedly. He would be there. Aaron Jones.
Yep.
Derrick Henry's always on that list because I never expect Derrick Henry to play well because there's something wrong with me. So every time he barrels for like 200, I'm like, didn't see that coming.
Which is wild because you won 250K.
Yeah,
Derrick Henry.
It's funny. It's like, what's changed since then? Well, I don't think I've played Derrick Henry since then. So maybe I should just start playing him again and see what happens. But yeah, there is something to that. It's always a balance. You can't just jam, let me play all the 2% running backs. I wish it was that easy. It's not.
For what it's worth, I'm not getting to the Seattle passing game today with any volume at all. I'm looking now. Do I have any? Yeah, I don't really have much of that at all, if any. As far as the Jet side of the game goes, I have a little bit of Devontae Adams, Ben, talking like 2% right now. And I think I have the same amount. Yeah, the same amount. I have 2% Garrett Wilson, 2% Devontae Adams, and I have 10%, 11% Breece Hall. I'm okay with that. I'm always okay getting a little bit of Breece Hall. His price, he's up there, right? But also, I think you'd agree, Breece Hall's going to be one of those 7K guys that is insanely overlooked when you have Kamara and Bijan and Kyren and different price tier, but Chase Brown, like, you're going to get some really low owned guys in the 7K range. Both of them are in this game.
He's on the list with Kenneth Walker of like Breece Hall. It only takes a couple at times. I don't particularly like the spot, but he's not going to be really popular in your contests. He's sporting a Q tag, which always suppresses ownership. And he's going to play. So he's another one, but he's in the ultimate sandwich spot. Truly. He's $200 cheaper than Kamara and $200 more expensive than Bijan. Both of them are going to be popular, and they should be.
Definitely. And Yobi Trice, thanks for the super chat earlier. With the lineup, Jordan ran it too. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan put up the simmed ROI on the screen. So positive ROI. not the highest you're going to get, but that's definitely a playable lineup, man. And yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to hit us up. We're monitoring. Jordan's monitoring the chat as well. All right. So, and by the way, Ivan said Mixon not getting any Mixon in the sim seems a little bit suspect. It's not suspect when you consider the depth at running back, but you can, again, make adjustments. Like if you wanted to get a little more Mixon, you can do that. And then what I like to do is if I say I wanted to get like to mix my exposures up a bit, Ben, like your power sweep or, you know, some of these 5 entry maxes or whatever, or you're spreading it out across your single entries, I'll just sort by, I'll filter lineups by Mixon and then just look at all of the Mixon lineups and pull the one I like the most. So they're going to be in the pool. They just might not be in your top lineups.
That's something that I've been doing more of, where it's like, you know, you favorite your lineups. You don't have to just take in order. You can, within that filter, and say, okay, well, I'm going to isolate, show me the best Mixon lineups now. And right. I know I want to get him in the pool. Let me do that. That's some of the functionality. Even if you're running on, you know, quote unquote factory settings, you can still start to drill down and say, okay, within these, I want to see the best Stroud stat, whatever you're looking for. And if Mixon appears, now you kind of know the builds that are grading out really effectively with Mixon.
Yeah, and guys, like you said, it doesn't have to be the top 150 even. Like sometimes it's still a good lineup as long as it sims positively, and you really like a specific build or player. I do that all the time where I believe it's playable.
100%.
Or boost them up to get them in your 150. All that's doable. What are you doing outside of Breece Hall? Any other spots, or do you want to move to this Chargers Falcons game? Because this is a fun one.
This is the best game.
So let's move to this Chargers game.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Game.
Okay. All right. Quentin Johnston, what a joke last week with those drops, man.
I needed Ladd so badly in Showdown, and they had 2 plans. I don't understand, and I like Jim Harbaugh a lot. You could throw it to Ladd for various gains, or you could throw it to Quentin Johnston, who can't catch. And for some reason they seem to be enamored with doing that. And I like him too. It's just he simply can't catch the ball.
You know what the problem is? He was open, and that's what sucks. Like he was, and I'm not saying Ladd wasn't, but that one, what was it? That third down, I think it was a crossing route, right? And he might have scored on that. Like he might have gone 50 yards to the house and just dropped it.
The fact that I don't know which one you're referencing illustrates how bad it was.
There's one where
it
was like 3 yards deep, and he crossed right side of the field, and Herbert put it on the numbers. Chad will know exactly which one I'm referring to, because there was nothing but daylight. The defender was trailing. No, like it was, oh God, it was bad. Plus, I found great value on that Quentin Johnston touchdown. Betted it like 240. It was plus 170 by the time the game started, and he was just awful. Anyway, I also think J.K. Dobbins, his absence really hurt. Like they didn't have Kamani Vidal active in that game either. Would have been helpful after Dobbins went down. I know Dobbins isn't like a prolific pass catcher, and they don't love to throw, or I'm sorry, to running backs, but does it really matter? Like you would have really liked to have some, because Gus Edwards isn't that guy, and Hassan Haskins surely isn't that guy either. And that's what they resorted to in that game. But whatever. I have a lot of Herbert today. I have a lot of Ladd. I have a good amount of Will Dissly. I don't have a ton of confidence in this backfield though. And I think if you wanted to take some shots on Gus Edwards, fine. I'm with the field on Gus Edwards right now. He's clearly the best point per dollar running back on the slate because he's essentially minimum salary. So I get that. But is there anyone that epitomizes a decimal back more than Gus Edwards does in this spot or any spot?
Certainly not. And so, yeah, with that in mind, you know what you're drawing to. I say this a lot. I think if you really like Gus Edwards today, I would run to the betting markets and use OddShopper to make sure you shop for the best prices and bet him to score, or bet him to score twice. Because how often is he killing you in DFS without scoring multiple times? I don't.
Unless he's doing like the 80-yard reception that he had last year, and it was like one of his 3 catches on the season.
I remember that. But yeah, the interesting thing about him in the slate itself, though, he could really mess up a game that a lot of people are going to. That's my biggest worry with him. I'm not worried about really playing him or not. I'm mostly worried about, I like Ladd a ton. I like Herbert. I like Falcons. Gus Edwards he orphans his points. He's going to take all the points on most plays. Herbert doesn't get any. Nobody else gets any. That's a little scary because it happens. You get pass interference in the end zone twice, and he has 2 touchdowns probably. So I get it, but this is a great game, and he's not the priority for me. He's not even close to the priority.
JB says, well, he lets us pay up everywhere else. He does.
Yeah, absolutely.
The question then becomes, though, because I would say, yes, Gus Edwards is probably underpriced, just given how DraftKings usually preemptively prices up these backups anyway. Mind you, this was a Monday night game, which is why Gus Edwards is $4,300, because pricing was already out. He does. It's just what we're saying is you need touchdowns from Gus Edwards in this spot. And guess what? He might get them. He might get them. That's why I'm with the field. I have around 8%. I'm perfectly fine with that.
He's in play.
We had a super chat too from Bryce. Do I adjust the stack type exposure tool, or do I leave it in factory settings? You can. I assume he's talking about. I assume he's talking about stack boosts, Ben, or like exposure caps on stack. I assume he's got to be talking about ROI boosts here.
He's either talking about that, or maybe you're talking about like the amount of stacks in the pool in terms of like QB +1, QB +2, QB +3.
Oh, got it. I think you're right.
Yeah. I don't really fiddle around with that, to be honest. I don't know if you do. It's not something, here and there I might tweak it a little, but no, that is something I tend to just leave.
Yeah, I'm not. And again, if you wanted to, you can just go in and hover over stack type. You'll see those 3 vertical dots. Then you can see all of like the QB +1 or 2s or 3s that you want and build lineups out them together that way. So a lot of different ways you can do it. By the way, we're at 522 likes. You said 747 and a half?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very live. Talking about 220 something over the next 30 minutes.
Seems reasonable. Yeah. And Gus Edwards is, we had a super chat about best sub 5K plays on DK. Can you have 2 in lineups? You definitely can have 2, and Gus Edwards would probably be in that conversation, particularly at running back. He's the only one in that conversation. There's cheap wide receivers and certainly tight ends like Goddard and Hawkinson.
The Barber Mosaic. They're trying to talk y'all off. I'm 100%. I have no interest in talking anybody off or on to anybody. If anything we said about Gus Edwards you disagree with, let us know why.
What does mosaic mean?
The Barber Mosaic?
Just in life. I know that word, but I don't know.
It always makes me think of like a painting.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was thinking like a waterfall. Is that? What does mosaic mean? A picture or pattern produced by arranging together small colored pieces of hard materials such as a stone, tile, or glass. Okay.
So maybe he just uses people's heads as a canvas and like.
That's what I do with my lineups. I paint the winning lineup over here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The DFS Mosaic over here. I like it.
That's actually a pretty cool name.
It is not bad.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
It's not bad at all. By the way, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. We didn't even mention that at the top because I've already done shows since, but yeah, hopefully you did. Hopefully there wasn't too much infighting. We're at 608 for take a single second, a tone. It's right down there. Just click it. If you hate the show, click the thumbs down, but make sure to do it twice. We'll get there, baby. I think we're gonna get there smoothly. It'll be a smooth landing. Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the opposite of that would be having to talk about the Colts and the Patriots, but we can't get there yet because we still haven't talked about Atlanta. Bijan Robinson, the workload that we've seen from him lately, I don't think it's fair. By the way, they're coming off a bye as well. They're fresh. I don't think it's fair to say that Algier is just never going to get any work. And last game was a little bit strange given that they were down early to Denver, right? Like you saw Jace McClellan get work in that game. But Bijan Robinson has just been playing 70+% of snaps each week. And this guy's so good. He's so involved in the passing game. It's unfair to say that he has an Alvin Kamara workload, but he's also just better and more efficient than Alvin Kamara.
I mean, I've been buying on Bijan for quite a while now.
Yes, you have.
He's done everything. He's not relying on touchdowns. He's not relying on a game script. They're a good team. They can move the ball. I know the Chargers defense is good, but I think we've seen it's pretty clear that it's not that good. It didn't grade out nearly as good as it was when level of competition has raised. Just look at what Baltimore and Cincinnati did to them. I think Atlanta offensively is near those teams, and I like Bijan a lot today. He's one of my more important players.
Yeah, there was a comment here from Eric. Please tell me why we should play Bijan against this great Chargers run defense. I can tell you why. I'm not convinced that this Chargers run defense is great at all. They've had, I mentioned this to you before the season started. I bet their alt win total over because their schedule was so easy. And it's been even easier with some of the good teams actually being bad this year. They allowed 212 rushing yards last week. 132 rushing yards to Tennessee, 181 to Arizona. This run defense for the Chargers is not actually as good as it may have initially appeared. They faced some pretty bad teams. Atlanta, this game is essentially a pick 'em, depending on where you look. And Bijan is involved in the passing game. Again, do what you want, but his workload is just so massive on both phases of the offense. I'm also just not convinced the Chargers run defense is elite.
Yeah, the Chargers defense is good. I want to be clear.
I agree, but they're not. Sorry, go ahead.
No. We're saying the same thing. They're good, but they're not good enough where I'm saying I'm removing a top tier running back at home in a pick 'em with a healthy implied total because they're so good. To me, that's way over the top. He can be more than effective. And he won't be the first or last back that had success against the Chargers this year.
Yeah. It's a volume thing for me too, though. Like efficiency, but also volume. So I like Bijan. Are you getting to the passing game?
So I'm not getting to the stack. I absolutely have zero issues with Drake London. He's just really good. And that's about it. And then you've got Mooney, you've got Pitts and those type of players this year that have, you're not going to have stability. It's going to be 1 week one, 1 week the other. But the big two, I'll call them, I think are firmly in play no matter what you want to do.
Just on my exposures right now, and I'll do one more run before the show starts, or before the slate starts. I don't think it's going to change all that much. I have 10% London, 1% Mooney, and I think like 2 or 3% Kyle Pitts. So yeah, it's more Bijan for me. He is my highest exposed player for Atlanta. On the Chargers side, Ladd McConkey far and away my highest owned player for the Chargers. Well, actually, Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert.
Correct.
All right, let's keep it moving here.
We had one. Sorry, we missed one super chat.
That's what I was going to go to anyway. Go ahead.
And it said, what percent do I need to have for percent to first in the single blah 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 50%, 150K max? So all you have to do, no matter what tournament you're in, just go to it and look at the top prize and divide it by the prize pool.
Correct.
That's
so
it.
If it's 10K to first and 100K prize pool, you're going to do $10,000.
Yeah. 10% to first.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. 10. That's 10%. Yep.
You divide it, you get 10, and that's it. So I don't know what exactly that is. I don't have it in front of me, but say it's 30K to first, that would be 1/5 of the pool. And that's what you would do. It would be 20% because 1/5 is 20%. So yeah, you just do it like that.
Yep. What contest was it?
I think he said the 50-cent mini max.
I think that one's actually like 7,500 to first or something. It's like a really small first place payout, or 10K to first or something like that.
Let me see if I can just find it. I'll just tell.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's fine. You gave him the math.
Yeah, 15. So this is super simple. 150K, it's 15 up top. That's 10%.
10%. There you go. Yeah. That one gets weird. Sometimes they make it really small up top. I don't know. Indy, and actually anything else from Atlanta or Chargers, just because that's a super important game for us.
No, just a great game to target.
Indy in New England. Okay. What do we do with Richardson here? It's just, I mean, we're being begged to play him at 5,500. Josh Downs is out. You even have Ashton Dolan out. So now it's it's Michael Pittman, it's Adonai Mitchell, it's Alec Pierce. You can't go to any other tight ends. They're going up against New England. Cold day, nothing crazy though. They're not even big favorites. Last I looked, this was inside of a field goal. I have such reservations about this Colts offense today. And I feel like it's going to burn me one way or another. This is the one spot that worries me more than anything else, no matter how I play it.
I feel some of that because there are opportunities here and there are slight road favorites. The price points give these guys a lot of room. I'm not doing anything too crazy. I'm kind of almost hedging my bets in the sense I have a feeling I'm going to end up with a decent amount of Pittman and a decent amount of Adai Mitchell, and that'll be about it. And if those guys play well, I might have some good lineups. If those guys play bad, I might have some dead lineups. But all in all, I can't roll to the stack. I'm not getting to Richardson, if that's what you're asking.
You're not?
No.
Okay.
And it's not even, again, I don't even want to say that. I shouldn't say definitively because I'm going to rerun the Sims. And if he pops up in the best lineup ever, I'm going to use him. But I have him behind Levis and I have him behind Herbert.
Okay. Obi-Wan asked, naked Anthony Richardson. You know why I have trouble with that? By the way, I have like one or two of those lineups with just Anthony Richardson right now and nobody else. The reason I have trouble with that is because the stack is so cheap.
That's the thing. It helps when the guys around them are more expensive because you can box them out, but it's just like he doesn't need to give that much. Even if he runs a couple, then you probably want to skinny with them, particularly with someone like Mitchell. So you could do it, but I don't think it's the optimal Colts build.
What about Jonathan Taylor?
I honestly, I mean, don't clip this and put it in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. I just don't know what to do with him. He used to be, and I shouldn't even say used to be, like when he's getting the 23, 24 carries, you're saying, okay, even a moderately efficient game, bonus time. And then if he scores, you're there. You don't need the targets. But if he doesn't, even at this price point, you're such in a precarious position. And I don't have a lot to say about him. He's always playable, but that's not really great to say because he's a good running back. They're all playable. I don't think I'm getting to him. I'd rather find the money for Kyron or Bijan.
Jonathan Taylor on this specific slate, to your point, becomes very difficult to get to. And I have 6%, by the way. So I actually have, I think I have more Jonathan Taylor maybe than I would have anticipated. But the thing that sucks is he's just not, this is a decimal back now with Anthony Richardson. He's not getting involved in the passing game. He has what? He has 2 targets over the last 2 games. And you know what's crazy? This bothers me. Actually, it concerns me. They lost 24-6 last week, right? And they were playing from behind for the large majority of that game. Jonathan Taylor played 96% of snaps, Ben. 96% of snaps. You know how many targets he had?
Yeah, 0.
0. In 96%. He played 53 of 55 snaps and wasn't targeted. So you want to say double-edged sword? I'll use your phrase today. One side of that is the guy's always on the field. The other side is this fucking guy played 96% of snaps and had 3 fantasy points. That seems I'm not even kidding. That seems impossible for Jonathan Taylor.
It's brutal. It's really limiting. And so you start to get into game scripts where you're just like, the chance of success is super, super low. And I get freaked out about that with Jonathan Taylor specifically.
The reason I'm still getting to some though is because he's always on the field.
Yes,
but
that's the other side of it.
Yep.
He could absolutely thrive and volume could be there.
JB said, but that's an outlier, so it's only a good thing by snap count. Yes, 3 is an outlier. I don't know if 13 is going to be an outlier when we look back on things. That's the problem. Not that he had 1 bad game. Pittman and Adonai Mitchell, you got to be getting to some of these cheap options, right? Even if you're not getting to a lot of Richardson.
Definitely. They just make sense at their price points. I honestly don't think there's a lot more that goes into it. They just fit those price points.
Yep. What about Pierce? He's the odd man out for me. I'm getting to the cheap Mitchell, and then I'm getting the Pittman, who are bookending a $4,900 Pierce, and I'm not getting to a lot of him.
Agree. It's really tough when you're, like he's not expensive, but he's not 3K. And so like, even if he has one of his 45-yard receptions, you need some volume at like 5K. You can't just rely on 2 or 3 catches. That's really, really tough. And I'm just not getting to him.
By the way, DFS PhD said, I binked the showdown last week with my 950th rated lineup. So we're talking about the Sims, right? Like,
Yeah.
Now you're definitely getting down there, but man, if you're spending the time to find some lineups you really like that are already grading out well, man, what a difference that makes. Skylar Bernard, $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Playing 5 entries in the $33 5 max. Crazy to full fade Kamara. If so, can I get an explanation as to why he's so high on today? Not adding up to me. All right, I'll answer the second one. You can answer the first part. The reason he's so high on is because Alvin Kamara is just getting a massive workload. PPR points go a very long way. And while he's currently in the midst of a touchdown drought, while Taysom Hill eats all of them up, he's just always on the field. This game is 2-point spread against vulnerable Rams defense, and Kamara just gets a shit ton of volume. To his other question, what do you say?
First of all, that's a great tournament. I love that 5 max. Play it every week. It's not it's not crazy to full fade Kamara, but I go back to the original thing I said. If you tell me that you want to minimize the chances that you cash 0 lineups, then I wouldn't full fade him. But if you say, you know what, I'm going for first, I just want to make the best lineups possible, and I'm not seeing it today with him, you can make 5 extremely effective lineups that will grade out well in the Sims that don't happen to use him. So I don't have a great answer, but yes, it is not crazy to full fade Kamara, even though I would not do that personally.
I don't think it's insane because there's a lot of other great running backs today.
That's what I mean. It's football too. Like you can, I basically think when you're talking only like 5 lineups, you could full fade anybody and just know that you're taking massive risk depending on who it is.
Also, people always assume when you fade a guy that he needs to be terrible. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like Kamara could have 20 today and you'd be super happy you faded him, right? Or he could have 22 and you're very happy you played him. It's all how the slate plays out.
Particularly with chalk. Like it goes with Chase Brown as well. It's the same concepts.
Right, with chalk, absolutely. Yeah. Or again, it doesn't matter. The chalk goes for 25 and so do the other guys. And it's just a wash, right?
Yep.
New England. Oh, God. It's just such a gross team right now. And Drake May is going to be good. I know you like Drake May. Demario Douglas has been good. He's expected to play. Keyshawn Bootsy's out on the field a ton, but he just consistently gives you like 3 for 50 or 3 for 30 on 6 targets. And then you have Ramondre Stevenson. Look, he's a good player, but they can't block for this guy.
It's a brutal team right now. For a dysfunctional, this is the worst type of team. Normally, when I think of the bad teams, it's like they're just awful, but they have like one good player. New England is a mess on offense, but they have like 8. They like take the mannerisms of the Lions. They're just all worse. They have like 4 pass catchers. They've got 2 tight ends. They've got a mobile quarterback, and they've got a backfield. It's just not working, though, and that makes it very, very difficult. From the DFS side, I don't have a ton here. I'll get to it in a second. I want to pass it back to you before I talk about Kendrick Bourne for a second. Do you have anything that stood out?
I do not. If you could convince me that Ramondre in this spot is okay. There have been weeks where I've gotten some value for the Patriots at pass catcher. The only thing I think I'd probably end up with is a trace amounts of like Drake May dirt cheap stacks. That's like right now I have 2 Drake May double stacks, and that's just because they're super cheap. But there are so many other spots I like more than that. Including a cheap Trevor Lawrence, a cheap Justin Herbert, even Richardson, a sub 6K Sam Darnold. The list goes on. Even Will Levis, I think I prefer over Drake May today.
I will say, ironically, I wanted to get this in there. I had it circled before the show. The Patriots, for me, on the betting side, are a team that I think, because the books are very confused about target share and things of that nature, a lot of them have been popping up in the tools. And I wanted to mention this, of course, because not only do we have Black Friday going on the DFS side, the thanks promo for Portfolio EV is still going on. It runs through today. So if you're looking to get props and action on the betting side, you'll probably get some Patriots in your portfolio, but that is still going on, 75% off your first month. We have both used this. It automates the process. You're getting down hundreds of advantageous bets every single day. And I was, getting some down this morning, and Kendrick Bourne came up. I had an anytime TD touchdown score on the Patriots as well. There's just a lot of value on some of these weird teams. So even if you don't use them in DFS, do yourself a favor and consider getting some really good positions on the betting side.
I had 30 bets in before I got out of bed this morning.
Yeah, I knocked out. I woke up after a long college football day yesterday, and I fired off a bunch of bets right at the beginning of the day.
It's a beautiful thing, man. And it's just been wildly profitable. You missed it because it was Greg and myself, but on Friday, we had a lot of people take advantage of this promo all week. Before the show even started, I'm reading chat, and it's several people being like, dude, I signed up. I'm up 1,200 in the first 2 days. Our friend CG was like, I started with $25 on BetMGM, and I'm up over $400 on BetMGM. Greg has ballooned his $100 bankroll in the challenge, north of 500 in like 5 weeks of the NBA season. We have all of these tutorials. Just use them. That's all I'd say. It's super easy to learn how to use this. It is super easy to start printing, especially when you're not limited and you can jump on any book you want. Just take a little bit of time, figure out how to use the tools, build your portfolios, use the results to see what bets are profitable, and you're just absolutely going to smash, man. It's been the way for all of us. NHL has been massively profitable, and I haven't watched a single game this year, yet it's been my most profitable sport all year long. You just can't, I can't say more good things about this tool. Our devs have absolutely crushed it. We're finding the sharp sources and finding the books that are off from that and just picking them apart. This stuff won't last forever either. Eventually they get wise to it. They can't keep getting beat up. Someone asked me that and was like, so what's the point? I said, what do you mean, what's the point? I'm going to get in and get out. Who knows how long it lasts, but I'm going to make money while I can by sitting on my couch and placing bets with the mass entry tool on my phone.
Yeah, you always have to stay. I mean, look at DFS, look at anything. Everything constantly evolves. I promise you, in a couple years, this will be standard. Like, oh, remember the days when you could just lean on a sharp source and make bets? Like, just like when you think about with DFS, the first people that had projections when that was a novel concept, do you know how much money people were making when ownership wasn't a thing, when that wasn't out there? Everything is evolving. And right now, when you're ahead of the curve, and Portfolio EV, I'm telling you, is ahead of the books right now, that is where there's serious, serious value. And we keep evolving, and so do they. And that's what makes it a fun challenge.
Absolutely. Links in the description. You'll see it right there. 75% off Portfolio EV. Click the link. Just use thanks. That's the promo at checkout. Thanks. It's that simple. Get that full month, $25. It's 75% off $100 for the month. You'll pay for that very quickly if you do it right. All right. Talk to me about the Tampa Bay Bucs today. 6-point favorites. No Jalen Coker or Jatavian Sanders. Coker's whatever. Sanders is going to be good. I couldn't believe the broadcasting crew was like, I'm watching this game and like, oh, he did a somersault. That was weird. I'm watching. What are you talking about? This guy literally landed upside down on his head and just like crushed his neck. His neck disappeared. And they're like, oh, he did a somersault. That's weird that he got hurt. No, dude. Guy just completely turned his neck into a slinky that didn't come back the other way. But there are 6-point dogs today. You have guys like David Moore who, blew up last time. Chuba Hubbard's just been good. Jonathan Brooks returned but didn't play much. We shouldn't have expected him to. Are you getting the Carolina? Could you see this game being oddly competitive?
Carolina has been oddly competitive lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think the spread's pretty accurate. I think Carolina will represent themselves fine and probably lose. I'm a little freaked out about Carolina because I keep not thinking like, oh, it seems like there's some value to be had there. But I worry about some of these because it's still a Carolina team that's hard to trust. And I guess I'm alluding to, I want to hear specifically from you, What are you doing with David Moore?
I'm playing him today.
Okay. I am too. And first of all, David Moore is a shapeshifter because I thought he was still on Seattle. So that's a difficult thing for me. It's hard to ignore though. It seems like he is in a pretty damn good spot and he checks a lot of boxes today. Opens up a ton of my lineups when I play him.
Here's why I'm playing him. He's $3,500. He ran routes on 38 of 40 dropbacks. It's less even the target share than the fact that he's just going to be on the field. Do I expect this type of production? No. But 10 targets last game, Ben. They were competitive. Bryce Young just needs to be, he needs to be just wildly pedestrian, and then you're fine. That's all he needs to do is be okay. And that's what he did last week. Actually, under pressure, he was quite good. But no, I think $3,500 David Moore opens a lot up, and it allows me to really start building lineups that I like. You don't need a huge. If David Moore finished with 10, I bet you'd be okay today.
Yeah. And Bryce Young, I mean, to his credit, he's been a lot better.
A lot better. Ever since the benching. Again, no, he still hasn't been great.
No.
But he hasn't been horrible. I have 6% Chuba Hubbard. My highest exposed player by far is David Moore in this game, on this team.
Me too.
What about Tampa? Do you want to take some shots on Bucky? Because he's been involved. This is a Carolina team that has allowed a league high 17 touchdowns to opposing running backs. They just absolutely kill him. I have a little bit of Bucky Irving sub 6K.
So do I. Awesome player, which again, there's some bias there. I just really like him as a player, but he's shown he can catch the ball. He runs hard. He got vultured and that didn't deter him. I almost like that because it's like, okay, that's not going to happen every single week. He is just a good player. And I think he continues to see work. Sub 6K, good game script. It's not, plug and play. It's far from that, but it's also playable. And he's in the pool.
If you ask me, Mike Evans is always in play when there's no Chris Godwin. They also didn't need Mike Evans last week. Just to be clear, they didn't need him. They killed the Giants. But I think Cade Otton's back in play now that he's at 4,500. He wasn't heavily involved, but they didn't need to. Carolina's been god-awful against tight ends. They've allowed 9 touchdown receptions somehow to tight ends this season, by far the most in football. Cade Otton's been a pretty frequent red zone recipient as far as targets go. I have no problem at 48 or 4,500. Not my highest exposed because that 4K range is stacked at tight end, but I don't mind Cade now that his price has come down like 1,000 from last time we talked about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely I'm not getting to Baker per se. So that makes it a little trickier, but yeah, Cade Otton. My biggest knock on Cade Otton is nothing he did wrong. Is that I like Goddard and Hawkinson.
Yeah, right. I know. Goddard, Hawkinson, even Disley, I think, in that game that could shoot out looks decent. But I like some Cade Otton at 4,500. I like some low-owned Baker stacks, actually. Like Evans, Otton with Baker. I'm enticed by that. I might throw one of them in to the single entry stuff, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I am absolutely fine with that. I was answering something in chat. People were asking, we get this question a lot. If you're not in a legal betting state, there are still books from the pick'em sites to some of the sweepstakes. Check out Portfolio EV even for that, not to go backwards, but I just wanted to mention that we support the pick'em tools as well. My state doesn't have them, but I know a lot of people. Our man, Jay Kari, behind the glass, I'm sure he's watching. I know he gets down a lot of volume on the pick'em sites using the tools.
Absolutely. Rams, Saints. All right. Kyron, Kamara, both of those guys, do we need to get into that much? They're 2 great plays today.
Great plays, great game. If you're comfortable with them, play them. I'm playing both of them.
What are you doing with Taysom Hill, though?
I am rolling the dice, and what I mean by that is I'm hoping that he doesn't kill Kamara, and I'm not playing him.
Okay.
I get it. I totally get playing it. I think you were the one that brought up and identified the coaching change has resulted in even more work for Taysom Hill.
Resulted in more work, but also just the fact that they have no other players on this team, right? I mean, when you look at the pass catchers, who do they have outside of Alvin Kamara? Who was on this team? You're You're talking about legitimate no-namers. So I think that's what puts Taysom Hill in play for me, is the fact that you have to just find ways to move the ball. And Taysom Hill has do you know what his rushing plus receiving is on DraftKings? Take a guess.
68.
Okay, so you're close, because it's all of these books there's no consensus here at all. BetMGM has 63.5, FanDuel has 71.5, DraftKings under is juiced, but DraftKings 74.5 is at plus 120.
That's
pretty
good.
Huge.
I was right on line.
That was great. Yeah, right, because there's no real consensus here. And because there isn't one, how can you?
Also, I'm sorry to derail the show. It is 11:30 and we have 740 likes. I almost hit it on the number.
Wow. All right.
That's pretty good. Come on now.
That's fantastic. What did I say? I said 808.
Yeah. Something like
so
that.
We're 809, something like that. There's some people that forgot. They hear you say that now.
That's fine. That's fine. I just let's take a moment. Not bad.
Nice work.
Now.
Wait, you're over the target today.
Okay.
God, that was unintentional. All right. No, it really was, dude.
Oh, I know. I know. You can't help it. It's just who you are.
I know. It's bad.
Yeah.
I think I like Taysom a little bit more than you do, only because they don't have anybody else. Taysom over Kamara is the craziest. Like, it's not even that he's unowned, because he's getting 14%, but people are going to be so tilted if they have a ton of Kamara and Taysom does it again.
So they are extremely leveraged against each other. And that is the case. Like, I will say, if you're not playing Kamara, the boost that Taysom Hill gets, if you think the Saints succeed, is massive. And likewise, if you think Kamara smashes, the chances that Taysom Hill kills you is so minimal. Goody was just talking about this. If you wanted to pivot to Kyren over Kamara and then run it back with the Saints stack, I love that build. It's not one that I am building right now, but if I got to that, that's fine. That is a structured way to do it. You kill Kamara with the Saints, and then you use Kyren for that salary allocation. That makes a lot of sense.
There was also a comment in chat saying, do people just hold on? Where was it? Everyone seems to think MVS will not continue running the same routes. That's not what I think at all. The concern to me is that he has 7 targets and 200 yards with 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games, and now he's $4,500. That is, you have to thread the most insane needle to get there on MVS again.
Yeah, like Shaheed. You get some of those, and then the price starts to rise, and the window closes pretty quickly.
Do you like Cooper Kupp or Puka today? Because I'm mostly getting to the ground game here with Kyren, but I have a little bit of those guys.
They're great players, so I get it. But no, it's super difficult to distinguish even between them, never mind them versus all the other receivers on the slate.
Okay. I have a combined like 15% Nakua and Kupp, about equal exposure to both, around 7.5%. I'm good with that. All right. Philly and Baltimore. I'll toss this over to you because we're turning it over to Eric and Matt coming up after this. They'll take you straight up to lock. We don't have word on Devonta yet. 2 limited practices. My guess is this guy doesn't play. I don't think he's going to play.
I hope he doesn't play. So
well, I'll tell you, I can break this game. Actually, I can break it down pretty easy for you.
Yeah, it's your account. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to get AJ Brown, and I'm going to get a lot of Dallas Goedert. At his price point with the competition elsewhere, and people are going to be like, how can you do that? I'm not going to get a lot of Barkley today. It's just the way it is. If you wanted to get to Barkley, I would never blame anyone for that. And I've tried to get over the field on days where people don't want to, but it messes with my builds at that price point a lot. And I think you can get comparable production elsewhere. AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert are my 2 highest exposed players from this game. It's not very close either.
That's more than fair. I think that's the way to attack Baltimore. With that said, it's funny. It's like, okay, well, can you? I forced some Jalen Hurts just because I think it's a really cool build. It's hard to do. It's much tougher than the cheap quarterbacks. But if we like Goddard and we like AJ Brown, and I do, why not build with Jalen Hurts?
Definitely. He's my 4th highest exposed quarterback right now.
Okay.
But it also falls off a cliff after my top 3. So it's not like I'm getting a ton. But yes, I want to get to some Jalen Hurts here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Plus, you can do it with the David Moore types and the Adonai Mitchells. You know, it's doable. But again, this goes back to our conversation at the top of the show. When you stack a team like that, where you're taking up what, like 16, 16K between Hurts and Brown, you need them to be good. As opposed to like just decent when you're stacking a really cheap team.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally different build, totally different goals. They have to carry you. Yeah.
Are you playing Baltimore anywhere? I have some Zay Flowers and a little bit of Lamar. I have more Philly than Baltimore. And the reason for that is because Devonta Smith's expected absence. That's why.
Same. It's Baltimore. Awesome team. It's Lamar, incredible player. He's always in that tournament pool, and he can be once again, but no, it's not a priority for me.
Wrap us up the last game for those of our FanDuel friends out there. San Francisco expected to get Brock Purdy back. Listen, Trent Williams being out is usually a very bad sign for this team. He's out. Nick Bosa's out on the other side of this game. All I'm saying, don't overlook that either. 6.5 point spread everywhere I've looked, Ben. It's going to be cold. We might have some snow, nothing like last night with that lake effect snow in Orchard Park, but I don't love San Francisco here today.
I bet Buffalo. I bet them this morning.
Me too.
It's the video.
Where'd you get him at?
6.
Me too.
Yep. I worry. The Niners, it just seems like it's a whack-a-mole situation. They get Purdy back, but they're losing other guys. They're just not the same. Debo has not been the same. McCaffrey has not been in the lineup, obviously, and when he returned, it hasn't been great. Buffalo's been sitting at home, resting, and they're really good. If I have interest in this game, it would be honestly just Josh Allen and plus one them. I don't think it's the best game to be. Yeah, a little skinny. Just hope Josh Allen, I've said this for a long time, I think in the biggest games, he's more apt to run. He's more apt to say, I'll just handle this. We saw that against Kansas City. That won them the game. I think we see it here. And on San Francisco side, listen, it's still Christian McCaffrey. But I worry about this team as a whole, and I think clearly they're not able to just flip the light switch this year.
It's true. $8,800 McCaffrey, I think, is very fair on FanDuel.
That's what I mean. There's nothing to say he's playable, and I like San Francisco. I root for them. Not that I root for real teams. They're a team I do like. I just don't see it right now.
Hey, you guys are the best. Appreciate you. Remember, this ends today. After today, 50% off all of the core or max packages over at Stokastic. Link down there, you'll see it. 50% off. It's right there. Use promo code Black Friday when you check out. Or if you wanted 75% off Portfolio EV, start printing money on the OddShopper betting side. Use the promo code THANKS for 75% off your first month. Links are down there. Ben, we got to 894 likes. And I will say the fellas in chat and watching this will rally. Before Matt and Eric kick this off, we'll be at 1,000.
No, but it's still been an awesome effort.
Wow.
What do you mean they're coming on literally in like 4 seconds?
I think 100. I'm telling you. I know how the boys and the ladies.
You make like against that. That's not true. What's your favorite QB for a single entry lineup? It would be the pay down. It would be Herbert and Ladd for me.
Yeah, Herbert and Ladd, and I think I'm going to get a little bit of that Trevor Lawrence in there as well because
I'm going to do that too.
Yeah, we'll commiserate together around 2:00. I'll see you there. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the day. Eric, yeah, that's really late. Oh, by the way, Thanksgiving slate. I actually profited for the first time in forever.
Oh, well, that's great. I had it nutted until the last drive.
I know. You still profited though. Look, usually our day's over 30 minutes into the slate. It could have been worse, right?
That's
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock, Week 13. We are ready to rock here on this Sunday morning. Smack that like button for us here. You could smash it, you could hit it, you could do whatever you want to it. Just make sure that we get that thumbs up because we really appreciate it. Anywho, I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. I'm joined, as always, by my friend, my colleague, if you will, my college football extraordinaire who knows how happy I am about BYU actually being good and finishing a game off for once, so my Iowa State Cyclones can be in the Big 12 Conference Championship. It's Matt Kajeski. You can follow Matt_Kajeski. How you doing, my dude?
Doing good. Happy about that as well. I have a future on Iowa State at 10-1 to win that conference, so hopefully they can get it done next week.
Yeah, Campbell. I mean, coaching well for once too. I mean, this is just wild times. I know you and I are kind of like on the same wavelength with that one. Good at recruiting, not so great at the old in-game coaching, but we found a way to overcome that one. And your Notre Dame Fighting Irish took care of business out in LA as well. So you got to be in a pretty good mood this morning.
Yeah, it was a little greasy. Final score might indicate otherwise, but they had a very late pick six that kind of put that game away. Little nervous when they have to start playing, like an SEC team, but they're in the dance. So that's about all you can hope for right now.
Are they ever going to join a conference?
Probably not. It would take some weird stuff that is too long to discuss on this platform to maybe get into a conference, but I don't see it happening soon.
We got people. Elway's Army. Nice projections yesterday, Matt. Did you find people onto some goodness yesterday?
It looked like, according to some Discord messages, that it was a good day for them. It was not for me. So congratulations if you were one of the people that benefited. I somehow finessed my way out of a good day.
Those are always the worst. We try not to do that so much here to the projections, and the Sims tool kind of does a lot of the work for us here. We're going to talk through the ins and outs of it. Yes, there's a couple of players that I will tweak here and there. Yes, there is going to be late swap to always consider, and paying attention to ownership from this first wave of games is going to be very important. As for actives and actives, we are still going to be waiting on the big one. Do not post fake news into chat, people. Please don't do that. But Devonta Smith, he is going to be questionable. First off, do you think he plays today?
No, I don't think so, but you never know. You're going to have to watch it.
And if he plays, there's no guarantee that he's 100% and that he's getting the full allotment of snaps with the lower body injury. So keep that in mind as well. But I think late swap is a huge component of this slate because we have a ton of ownership that's consolidated around those afternoon games. And I think that's what this is probably my favorite slate that I've looked at the jump. Purely because we have expensive running back options. We have expensive wide receiver options. We have really consolidated ownership around a couple of quarterbacks. And then we have late swap that we get to utilize here. But actives and actives from this early wave of games, nothing that really stood out to me. Anything that stood out to you?
Nope.
Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass here. We're ready to rock here on this lovely Sunday morning. Again, we go position by position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense. We're going to be working with the Sims tool here. We are going to get you everything that we possibly can here. And also, I'm going to throw this up here at the get-go. We'll talk about it later, but Black Friday, this is such a ridiculous deal. 50% off any core or max sub. Again, this is going to be going on until Monday night, so take advantage. Or actually until the end of tonight. I think we have something coming out for Cyber Monday for the people, but Black Friday, 50% off any core or max sub right now. Take advantage of that here as we're talking through it. We've got 75 minutes to break down this slate, give you all the ins and outs, tell you what Matt and I are doing with our lineups. And if you're able to utilize that in cohorts with the old Sims tool, I promise you're going to like your results over any long-term sample size. It's been very, very nice this season. But we begin at the quarterback position. You ready to rock, my dude?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. I think before I even do like the expensive quarterbacks, Justin Herbert is your cash game quarterback on DraftKings today, no?
He is.
Yeah, there's just no way around it. Some people always want to ask that or throw a super chat out here and there about it. I wanted to just kind of cover that one from the get-go. His price is way too cheap. This team is throwing way, 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 way more. Shout out Harbaugh for making some adjustments. And then obviously, they gotten to play a lot of weak teams. I don't think Atlanta's secondary is something I'm terribly worried about here on the other side of things. But the expensive quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, kind of a forgotten soul, I think, on this slate somehow, some way. And Joe Burrow, we know doubles always look nifty. And one of the higher implied totals that exists on today's slate, You get T. Higgins out there. They've been number 1 in EPA relative to other teams. If it had been T. Higgins active the entire season, I think we'd be talking about Cincinnati in a different light. But this is also a difficult Pittsburgh matchup. It's also a spot where Higgins is going to be pulling the ownership. I think the expensive wide receivers between A.J. Brown, Nico Collins at 7,900, some of those guys, and Justin Jefferson finally get to click on that name today. But I am very much here for trying to get to some tournament allocation here for these expensive quarterbacks. Do you have a favorite amongst those 4, though?
I think it's easier to get to these players than maybe a few weeks ago.
Yes.
I think my favorite is Hurts, just with the projected consolidation without Devontae Smith. Again, you'll have to wait on that, and it is a little bit of a guessing game. But I find him easier to stack than like a Lamar, for example, just because you kind of know where the ball is going, and you don't even need to like double stack Hurts or anything like that. You could just play Goddard. You could just play A.J. Brown because of his rushing equity. He's pretty easy to use, and he also has an awesome matchup against that Baltimore secondary. On the other side of that game, Lamar is going to be going into a little bit more difficult of a matchup against Philly's defense, which is vastly improved just with their young players standing out and developing more. I would rank him second just because Lamar has so many passes getting there on the ground. I think Daniels is third. I hesitate with that a little bit. I kind of want to put him above Lamar, but we've seen sort of the opposite with Daniels where he's played a little bit worse recently. Thankfully, the rushing's back. Tennessee is a little bit better on defense than I thought, but I think it's pretty easy to stack Daniels and it's cheaper. You either use Noah Brown or Zach Ertz. If you want to pay up for a contrarian McLaurin, you could, but I think I would rank them right now. Hurts, very close between Lamar and Daniels third.
Yeah, it's so weird with the Jaden Daniels thing because I'm talking about it, just based on what I have for my lineups. I have almost 300 lineups in play today across both sites, and I have almost no Jaden Daniels. And last week, I was pretty high on him purely because I thought, another week removed. The rib injury feels like forever ago now at this point, but I felt pretty confident. If you watched the betting show over on OddShopper, Lindy's Leans, Legs, and Locks, talked about Jaden Daniels rushing, thought it was a really, really smash spot against Dallas, and it came to fruition in a losing effort. Puts up 32. You really want that rushing to come along for the ride, but at least this is at home again, maybe. That's a plus here. They're 6-point favorites, and you have a dinged-up Austin Eckler, which kind of takes one facet of that offense out of play where, it's going to be a little bit more of Jeremy McNichols having to mix in who, that could easily turn into, instead of a designed dump off to Austin Eckler, turn into Jaden Daniels out scurrying about. So there's interest there, but I have none right now. I have none. And it makes no sense to me because I generally feel like I'm a little bit higher in terms of projection on him than most everywhere else. And that is just not the case here. Terry McLaurin, not exactly cheap. Noah Brown, going to be very popular. Jaden Daniels, it's just really tilting out here to try to force anything in my lineups. I mean, I'm just having a really tough time getting to him. But that being said, it's pretty easy for me to look at Lamar Jackson as my favorite of these 4 here at the moment. I love the upside of that game. It's so weird. It's the highest total one. And I think there's 2 really interesting cheapies to play with it. A mid-range Zay Flowers as well. But Rashad Bateman, I mean, there's nothing sub 4,500. If everybody's going to be clicking on more, I do have some Addy Mitchell in my life. Pretty high on Addy Mitchell, just potentially being that guy instead of more. But I'm having a tough time getting off of Lamar Jackson when he's going to be 4% owned at home against a Philly defense that, yes, they're number 1 in PFF grading, but they haven't really played anybody. One of the weakest strengths of schedules this season, Matt.
I'd rather just play Andrews or Likely with him. I forgot to bring that up. That's one
Love
way I
Andrews.
do like. Yeah, Kohler's out of this game. So when they run 12, you no longer have like 25% of the snaps going to Charlie Kohler, which should hypothetically bring Andrews and Likely onto the field more. And they play a lot in tandem anyway. This is a big 12 personnel team. So I think you could see more of that, and those players are cheap. And I mean, they're both below 4K. Like, I would rather just play Andrews or Likely over a ton of guys down there, especially because neither of them are owned. Like, if it's David Moore versus Andrews, I'm picking Andrews.
Yeah, I love Andrews today. I also love the late swappability of the afternoon and potentially getting onto more Goddard in the event that Smith is out. If you're running our Sims tool today, you're getting Goddard from the get-go. I would be keeping that in mind here with Devonta Smith. We don't have him out right now because, why would we at this point in time? So let me just double check that because I always say that stuff and then Devonta Smith, we do have a 0 projection on him. So Dallas Goedert, that is an important thing to understand in the Sims tool at this given time. You're going to get a lot of him because we currently have Devonta Smith projected out. He's not officially out, but it's very important to get yourself onto the tight end position there with Goddard, with Mark Andrews. I think both of them give you extremely cheap exposure with upside, and tight end. It is a very, very important position today. I think you see a lot of the builds that I'm looking at here in the Sims tool. It's a lot of, Mark Andrews in my Lamar Jackson lineups, but they also have Dallas Goedert along for the ride. So I'm a big fan of that quarterback tandem there, Jackson and Hurts, but I'm getting to more of the Jackson side. And Hurts, I definitely do like the A.J. Brown piece, but hard to play both of them together and then like the rest of your lineup. But let's get down into the 6K range. We did the 4 expensive guys, and now we have 4 6K quarterbacks to parse through. Mayfield, Stroud, Murray, and Cousins. Last week, or was it last week? Yeah, I had a ton of CJ Stroud. Talked about how eventually we're going to see that come to fruition. Like seeing Trevor Lawrence in action today. I think that helps out because confirmed, Mac Jones, not good at the footballs. Baker Mayfield has been awesome at the footballs all season long. Has Mike Evans another week into being back, from the hamstring issue he had, and looked pretty decent first time out. They said he was a full go. Kind of. Should be better off in this spot. Kyler Murray against Minnesota, I think, just gets lost in the shuffle, and I really have no Kirk Cousins interest. What are you seeing in the 6K range, Matt?
I think this range is pretty solid for tournaments. It's sort of left over because you either go all the way up or a lot of people are just going to be paying way down. And you can poke a hole in just about any of these guys. I think the matchups are really nice for both Stroud and Mayfield. You're playing Jacksonville and Carolina, 2 of the worst defenses, maybe the 2 worst defenses in the entire NFL. I think the only real problem is you could just see both teams get there on the ground with Bucky and Mixon and Rachaad White. But I'm definitely going to take shots with these 2 players just in the event that it comes through the air. You could see just 2 resounding blowout wins for both teams. And honestly, getting back Trevor Lawrence and then Bryce Young showing that he has kind of a pulse in the last game could lead to more up and down ability for both of these offenses just in a potential shootout situation. I'm interested in Kyler too. It's a tougher matchup for him compared to the other guys, but he's also at a cheaper price point and he has more mobility than them. So I think you can still play Kyler. He's, I think, stackable with Marvin Harrison today is my preferred way to do this. He's cheaper than he has been in a while. And McBride's expensive. So it's just a little trickier, in my opinion, to play that side of the 6K range. But I still want to get to a little bit of Kyler, just with so much ownership coming in on the 3 sub 5K guys.
What do you make of Jonathan Gannon saying, we're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. the football today. The passing game will go through him. What are we doing here? What are we actually doing here?
I mean, you could give him a slight boost because obviously our projections account for him not doing that. I wouldn't go crazy with it. He already has a pretty decent role, not the role we thought. But yeah, I mean, I would clearly, like, there's a chance that it goes a little bit higher and you could give a boost if you believe that.
Yeah, it's tough for me to want to do anything outside of McBride on the Arizona side today. Suppose James Conner is going to be completely unowned in a spot coming off of last week. And, they are starting to mix in a little bit more Benson in some of these spots. It's not like the 100% bell cow role, although he just got a contract extension. They're obviously happy with him. So 2 years, 18 million I saw come through on the wire yesterday. So nothing like paying your bell cow running back, 4 weeks before the season's over? Way to go, Arizona. Nicely managed.
I mean, that's not that bad.
I suppose. But, I guess it's a goodwill faith offering. And James Conner, most people thought he was dust leaving Pittsburgh, but one of the reemergence. Yeah, he had a nice reemergence here the last couple of years in Arizona. I've enjoyed watching that from him for sure. But, yeah, I don't love Benson mixing in here as much. But anyway, we're back to the quarterback position. And, again, there's not a ton of ownership coming into these 4. I have Cousins as a pretty distant 4th amongst these guys. I do like Drake London in that game environment, and everybody likes the Chargers side of that one. So let's get into that, shall we? Your cash game quarterback, there's no doubt about it, Matt. He makes all the sense in all the land to go to all the Justin Herbert. But Anthony Richardson's there for 100 less. We have Sam Darnold for 300 more in this 5K range. And my favorite for tournaments, Matthew Stafford, sitting at 5,800. We also get Will Levis at 5K pulling ownership. Drake May at 5,600 for the identical tag, I think is a nice tournament pivot. Justin Herbert looks awesome, but how much of him are you planning on firing up in large field tournaments today?
Playing right at the field, he's clearly the best one in this range, but I don't want to be out over my skis in like a 20% on quarterback. Usually like this stuff is condensed at like 13, 14, 15%. A 20% on quarterback is a little bit rich for me, but he lets you do a lot of things. It's tough not to play, especially like if you're playing one lineup, I'm stone out on him. But if you're playing 150, which I am, I don't see how you play anything but like the field. Maybe you get a little bit below on him. But yeah, there's just no chance I'm coming in over the field on really any of these chalk 5K quarterbacks when all the studs are low owned. And there are ways to get them. So it's just hard for me. I mean, and plus, like to get into each of them individually. Herbert, this team loves to run the ball.
Mhm.
Could Gus Edwards vulture 2-3 touchdowns on the ground? Like absolutely. You would not be surprised at all if that happened. Anthony Richardson's been stone awful this year. Now he has a good matchup and he's been a little better since he got benched. And he has the cheat code dual threat ability, but I mean, he's still bad, at least so far to this point. Stafford offers you nothing on the ground. They do throw the ball more in the red zone with Puka and Cooper Kupp back, but you still have Kyron there. He could fail at any point, and he basically requires a 300-yard bonus to hit optimal. Sam Darnold is kind of the same thing. Like, he doesn't run it all either. So I just see holes in every single one of these guys where I'd rather take shots on some of the contrarian options and not play into ownership here. At best, I'll be at the field on all of these guys. At worst, I'll be pretty far under on some of them.
Are you playing single entry today?
No. Playing 150 set, some tickets in the millie. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. I've got, my normal 150 on DK and then, playing all the 20 max and then playing a bunch of single entry. And then I have 4 big lineups and I'm rolling out in like the main 5 max stuff. So
yeah, I'm talking larger field stuff. If you're playing smaller field, that the conversation changes.
Right. And that's where I'm saying, like, for me, I'm going to play Herbert in one of those 5. Like, there's no way around it. I want to have Herbert. I'll be at the field in terms of those big lineups. I'm right around. I'm sitting at 16%, so I'm about 2% under right now on Justin Herbert. And part of that is what's happening with Anthony Richardson for me in the Sims. I'm going to play him in large field, and I'm not going to play him in small field. I'm pretty sure that we end up seeing him come in lower than we have projected in some of the larger field stuff, purely because, I mean, it's an uncomfortable stacking partner. Like Josh Downs, I think, was a pretty comfortable stacking partner, but people haven't seen it with, Addy Mitchell, the way that you're going to see tournament winning upside. They haven't seen it with Michael Pittman, like whatsoever. I mean, we had signs of a pulse last week, which was nice, but I do think this is the guy that if anybody gets squeezed here and we see Herbert get north of 20% and we see Darnold potentially get into double digits, I think Anthony Richardson has a chance to be like 8-9%. We've seen this happen a couple of times where it's very fluid, some of these individual quarterbacks. And I go through the Sims tool and I favored out a number of these lineups. And I like a lot of these singles with potentially like a Hunter Henry or Demario Douglas and a couple of these as run backs. For the most part, though, it's skinnies. It's just straight skinnies of Anthony Richardson. He's cheap, and Addy Mitchell, who I'm stacking him the most with, is cheap. I really like the upside built around those type of lineups, and I feel like if I play Herbert, I'm stacking him with like the same 2 pieces. Ladd McConkey is one, Quentin Johnston being the other, who can't catch footballs anymore, so that's fun. But like, I really like the idea of just going to Addy Mitchell with Anthony Richardson in like 2 of those 5 big lineups, and then a couple of these other ones, and rotating between AJ Brown, Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, at the running back position, Alvin Kamara, Kyron Williams, that 7K range that we'll get to. I think it just looks like an awesome build for today. And if it ends up lower than I think, again, small field, I'm worried because I do think people will be, more apt to do what I'm doing, looking at their lineups. But I think he's probably my favorite quarterback play on the entire slate today.
Yeah, I don't know where his ownership's going to come in. We are lower than some of our competitors.
Yes.
So I would note that. And I mean, with the stuff stacking wise, like I have trouble still with Richardson and AD Mitchell. It's basically just a price thing. Like Richardson, I don't think accesses his ceiling through the air. You kind of need like 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns, 100-yard rushing bonus, I think. The only thing that would keep AD Mitchell still in play in that situation is his price. He's super cheap. So if he does end up catching like an Alec Pierce style bomb or something, I think that's how he's at optimal, especially because that's his game. With Herbert, I think you have so many more paths to being optimal because he's awesome throwing the ball. He has clear stacking options. Johnson, I know everyone saw it the drop. He's still been way more involved and better than previously. Ladd McConkey is your clear number one. You have a very involved tight end in Disley, who's not all that expensive. And Herbert is rushing the ball more than he ever has in his career, and it seems to be pretty sticky. Like, he is leading the NFL in EPA on scrambles. And now they're designing attempts for Justin Herbert, which I think makes a lot of sense. He kind of has a profile similar to Josh Allen. It's just under, Staley and the previous moronic regime, they wouldn't use him to his strengths. Now you have like an actual competent NFL staff, and it's let Herbert blossom. So I think Herbert is still a better play straight up than Richardson, even in tournaments, even at ownership, especially because like we're towards the bottom of ownership projection on Richardson. I think he might actually come in higher.
Okay. Well, then I will probably have to trim that a little bit. Again,
well,
I
don't listen to me. Like, you can
this.
have your own theories. I'm wrong on this stuff all the time.
I kind of go, oh, I am too. But part of it is talking through it. And I think the best part of doing these shows with you is it's helped my process in terms of like what I'm looking at, where I'm looking at it. Again, I want to go to our ownership projections. I want to utilize the Sims tool, and I want to always be considering late swap. I don't want to do a ton else. Like, having ball takes is one thing. Like, I think the biggest change, if we're being honest, is a healthy Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. Joe Alt, your boy from Notre Dame, has just been incredible on the right side of that offensive line. You give Herbert time, and Herbert is going to be extremely effective. You have bad schemes and you don't give him time, he's going to have to pepper Keenan Allen 17 times like he did last year in order to try to be successful. He's doing this with a rookie Ladd McConkey out of the slot, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, and Gus Edwards. I mean, we are looking at Herbert really ascending to be the elite quarterback that we all kind of knew that he was, but never really had an opportunity to do it. But like, I do think Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, I mean, those two guys, 1-2, are so unbelievably incredible amongst the offensive line position. And I think the Chargers are going to continue to succeed as a result of it, but they also haven't played anybody, if we're being honest. I want to have ball takes too, but yeah, for the most part, I just was running the stuff and seeing Anthony Richardson in some of these lineups, and the top ROI lineups I'm getting have a lot of him skinny. So wanted to at least throw that out there. I'll make some adjustments and see where we land by the end of the show. But I want to ask you about a quarterback that nobody's playing today, Derek Carr. This is an awesome game environment. We're going to have Taysom Hill pulling ownership. We're going to have a Marquez Valdez-Scantling option for Eric Lindquist again today, which we know my checkered past with that individual. Sure, this is going to go well. And then, of course, the mega chalk, Alvin Kamara. But if we're going to get 6 or 7 drop-offs, aren't you looking for one to get to the house in tournaments? I sure am. Feel like Derek Carr is kind of an easy access to mix around, get some exposure. And obviously, you're worried about Taysom Hill maybe going out and passing a couple and stealing some equity there. But 5,100 in that game environment with as many Rams as I like in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua for tournaments. Again, I have a ton of expensive wide receivers in the pool. I love Derek Carr. Trevor Lawrence, it's hard to pull the trigger on too much, but like specifically at 5,100 Derek Carr, I kind of like, and nobody else does. Is there anything that you like in the 5K range that nobody else is on?
Yeah, I hadn't really considered Derek Carr that much. Those are pretty interesting points considering all the ownership on 2 players in that specific team, and the game has a ton of it. So I don't know. I need to think on that a little bit more as we go up to lock. I'm probably the most biased person against Derek Carr in our entire team. So whenever I don't get him in the Sims, like I usually don't go out of my way to jam him because I think he stinks at football. But his price is right in like, is he that much worse than Will Levis? No, I think you'd probably argue he's better. Like I got some Bryce Young lineups, like, I don't know. Maybe I'll keep those. Right now I have some Aaron Rodgers lineups. I'm probably just going to straight up X those. So I don't know. There's probably some room for a sprinkling of Derek Carr considering the leverage you're gaining off the other players. The only problem is like their run rate's going to be super heavy. I don't think Taysom Hill or Kamara need Derek Carr to have a good game to hit their ceilings. I think I almost would just play like an MVS stack or something for full leverage off that. Because, I mean, Hill's going to get at least, I don't know what, 40, 50% of his production on the ground. Some of it will come in the air. He had like a career game in targets in their last contest. And they're still super banged up at their pass catchers. So he's going to be involved. But Kamara doesn't really need him. Like the dump offs don't do a ton for you. You'd have to punch it in the end zone via the air to help Carr. Same thing with Taysom Hill. I still think there's holes, but I like the leverage aspect.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm gearing towards. And obviously talking through Anthony Richardson with you a little bit and kind of your concern thinking he might even be higher owned than we have, has me kind of thinking I have a Stafford lineup with Nacua. that I keep staring at in Kyren that I think could just kind of encapsulate the entire game. I think I'm just going to run it back with MVS and hope for that 1 or 2 deep bombs, but I'd still rather have Stafford, I think, from the game. Just better projection, better pass catchers overall. I mean, Kamara is an anomaly, but like, I think that outside of him, I mean, Taysom Hill, that was an anomaly last week. We're not expecting a 40 piece. Otherwise, we'd just all play 100% Taysom Hill, but I'm very much here for Derek Carr to potentially get a little bit of leverage here on the entire 5K range. And he's just cheap. So you have extra outs where he doesn't have to necessarily go for the same ceiling as a 5,900 Sam Darnold does, some of these other pieces. So just something that I'm considering here as we're finishing things out. Do you have any Bryce Young interest? I've seen more Bryce Young comments in the chat than I was expecting this morning.
I mean, I got some of him. I think it's positive he's coming off his best game, but dude, I don't know. Like you're stacking him with Thielen or... I mean, these are some of the highest owned receivers in the slate. Like the David Moore chalk, like just, I don't know if tacking Bryce Young onto that really helps you. So I'm probably going to X him.
AJ Words, Jesus Christ, moving along. Too much time on crappy QBs. I don't know if you know this, but like 80% of the quarterback ownership is on these crappy QBs in the 5K range. So you will sit there, you will listen to me and hear every word I have to say.
Don't read the comments, dude.
It's a great point.
Also a great point right now.
What?
I don't even have him up right now.
That's such a sharp move. Also a sharp move, signing up at stokastic.com/HOF. Get yourself the avatar so that if you finish in the top 3 of a tournament of 5,000 or more and you're not duped on the train in Showdown, you have an opportunity to get yourself a month of the Sims tool for free. Lofty has done a great job with this program. If you guys have not checked it out, go to stokastic.com/HOF, download one of those lovely avatars that we have there, and yeah, take advantage because there's really cool stuff. Also, if you get 20K or more, yeah, make yourself 20K or more. First off, congrats. You have more money than you had earlier in the day. But secondly, you'll get one of these cool rings that commemorate that W. It's an awesome chance for you guys to be able to not just be intertwined here into the community, but to show it off to your friends and family there at home. Check out those rings. I think those are super, super cool. One of the cooler things that Lofty's thrown out there together in this Stokastic HOF program. But tweet your win to Stokastic HOF over on X. And then, yeah, once you post that win, we'll be able to get you 1 month of the Sims tool completely free. Top 3. I said that already. I said the top 3 in 5,000 or more. I did. Chat, let everybody know. Did I say that you have to finish in the top 3 of a tournament of 5,000 or more? Put yes or no in the chat. Let Jordan Klein know that he was not listening to any word I said. Ultratel. To the running back position we go. We have some expensive options here. Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry. But Alvin Kamara just absorbing all of the ownership. Yes, I did say it. Congratulations to me. But Breece Hall, completely forgotten. 7,500, sub 10%. He should be a bell cow. I know dinged up coming into the week, had some limited practices, but I don't know. It's a spot where I think the Jets defense is one that I like. A little bit of mini correlation sitting there. Bijan Robinson, 7,300, sub 20%. And my favorite, Kyren Williams, as you might be able to tell, New Orleans, LA. Definitely a targeted game here for me, and Kyren gives me a lot of access to it. I heard a little bit of talk there from Lofty and our friend Ben Raza there. 7K Kenneth Walker, I suppose, is also in play here. But, I mean, with all the ownership coming into Kamara, what are we doing here with the expensive running backs? Because there's lots of pivots, but none of them that are going to potentially project for the target volume coming Alvin Kamara's way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why Kamara is higher owned. It's why he projects better. So I think this is just a conscious point for your lineups. Like if you eat the Kamara chalk, you have to be contrarian somewhere else. And if you're going to fade him, you can probably play a little more chalky in other points in your lineup. I think there's a lot of systemic risk with New Orleans still. And with so much of this coming down to like Kamara and Taysom Hill, there are a lot of lineups where I would rather just play Kyren or play Bijan or play Kenneth Walker, just to name a few, or even go up and play a guy like Mixon. So I guess to kind of break some of those other players down, Kyren still has the awesome role that we knew coming into the season. They're not rotating a lot of other backs onto the field. I think the main problem and why you see a projection difference is a lot of these touchdowns have gone to Nakua and Kupp. That's not going to change, but it can ebb and flow on a week-to-week basis. So if you want to take some leverage off not just Kamara, but off a really owned Puka Nacua and a decently owned Cup, Kyren, I think, makes some sense. He's going to come in below 20%. I like playing Mixon in this game because I think some people are going to play Nico and Stroud. I'm certainly going to have lineups with those players as well. But you pay up $300 and you get essentially the same role. The only difference is more of Mixon's volume is coming on the ground versus the air, but the matchup is significantly better against the bottom 3 defense in the NFL. The Texans have eyes for nobody but Mixon at this point in the season. He's like a lock for 25 carries. He's one of my favorite players. I like using the Seattle guys, man. Like, I think there's been some sort of disconnect on New York all season long. This defense stinks. It shouldn't. There's really good players on this team. They were awesome last year, but they've been horrifying since they fired Saleh. I'm a little surprised that Vegas is still giving them as much credit as they're getting because they haven't deserved it. This team is like a lock to not cover every single week. So yeah, I mean, Kenneth Walker, I think, makes some sense. Probably should have brought up Geno in the quarterback spot, but anyway, that's kind of where I'm going for the most part in this expensive range, not named Kamara. Kamara's still my second most on back, though. He's very clearly a good play, just kind of a preference on whether you want to use him or not.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help have Aaron Rodgers basically do nothing on the offensive side. And
that doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help. And obviously that's affected the defense and obviously the dysfunction, and not having Saleh there anymore probably doesn't help either. But it's still DJ Reed on one side and Sauce Gardner on the other. It makes sense to me that Seattle's not pulling a ton of ownership. I mean, weather-wise, I mean, we're looking at it's fine, but like for the most part, it's the lowest total that we have on the board, period. So I get it. But as you said, that's Vegas giving them a lot of credit. Yeah, I'll definitely revisit a little bit of Kenneth Walker. I currently have 0. That's kind of why I was surprised when they brought him up. Joe Mixon, I love your shout out there. We're talking about Jacksonville defense. Who hasn't succeeded against Jacksonville defense? Answer, Sam Darnold. That's about it off the top of my head. Sam Darnold struggled against the Jacksonville defense, and that is it this season. So I'm with you. I think Joe Mixon definitely makes a lot of sense. Let's get into the 6K range, though, because we have another pocket of ownership coming into Chuba Hubbard, 6,700, a little bit there. Jonathan Taylor, yeah, that didn't go well for me last week, but I knew what I was getting into going up against Detroit. I knew that it was probably dead on arrival, and wouldn't you know, Jonathan Taylor, no work. They were in come from behind mode, and that is not what you want with Anthony Richardson at the helm. I'm happy to fire up a little bit here, especially with the Colts defense showing up as much as it is in my lineups. Aaron Jones, we feel pretty good about him, don't we? Because in tournaments, you and I always do. And 6,200 Chase Brown is the nuclear chalk of the day. Let's parse through this bit by bit, shall we? Favorite tournament play in the 6K range?
I think it's got to be Aaron Jones, man. Like, they've stopped using as much of their rotational backs. I think that makes sense considering the talent level of those guys. It's just, I think you have to balance that between like a preservation for Aaron Jones because he's going to get hurt. But in this game, Minnesota should be fairly competitive. I think it's a decent matchup for him there. He's my second most owned back in this range behind Chase Brown. So I think he's good for tournaments if that's the leverage play you want to make. I'm still okay with Taylor. Anthony Richardson is not the preferred quarterback for a guy like Taylor, and you always have to worry about third down, hurry up stuff. But that's extreme leverage off what I think is going to be like a top 3 owned QB on this slate. So I'll happily play him in this range. I struggle with Chuba Hubbard. I'll likely come in under the field on him. Like, his best days are behind him. Jonathan Brooks returned. His role's not decreasing. It might stay the same. He might only play a handful of snaps, but there's risk that just continues to rise as they try to see what they have in their rookie. I mean, I don't really know what they're doing from a team building perspective. They just signed Chuba. They spent a second on Brooks, but I don't know. There's just risk there that there isn't with some of the other backs in this range. And that kind of does it for this range. I mean, there's Robinson, you have the injury. How much is McNichols going to play because of that? Tony Pollard, Spears is back. So it's kind of a bleak range. It's sort of just, all right, you can play the chalk and Chase Brown. And that's part of the reason why I think he's chalk. You don't have a lot of alternatives. But I like playing Jones as a pivot, and I'm okay with playing Taylor. The rest of the position in this price range is kind of tricky.
Yeah, it's a really tricky spot, but I mean, Chase Brown just pulling an exorbitant amount of ownership. I mean, they go out, get Khalil Herbert, not really going to utilize him in any way, shape, or form from the get-go. It's going to be a lot of Chase Brown out there, but I have respect for Pittsburgh's defense in a way that it would appear. That's kind of the more confusing one. I think you're really confused with, what's going on with the total and why the Jets defense is getting so much respect. I'm wondering why the Cincinnati offense gets so much respect here, because Chase Brown, I mean, he's going to get all of the work, I would think, and I'm still kind of uncomfortable with the click in tournaments. And the Sims are a little bit on the opposite end. Again, this is where I don't want to try to think too much about it. I'm a little bit below the field, like just barely sitting at 34%. I'm okay with that here. I think in a third of my lineups, I'm happy to roll out Chase Brown, but I think there's a ton of ways that entire Cincinnati team fails here against Pittsburgh. Yes, they're at home. Yes, they have T. Higgins back. They're number 1 in EPA. If you were to just look at it throughout the entire season, brought that up earlier with T. Higgins on the field. But my dear sweet God, Chase Brown is pulling a lot of ownership, but there's not a ton of pivots that you're going to be awed and inspired by. However, there is a 5,800 Bucky Irving. There's a 5,900 Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is interesting. I even like Rachaad White for tournaments at 5,300. Kind of forgotten here, but there's definitely dump-offs coming his way. He has more of that receiving volume. They took on San Francisco in come from behind mode in that one. Had 7 targets for 6 catches there. I think sub 5,500 is kind of interesting there. We'll get into the Gus Edwards and Vidal thing here in a second too, but what are you seeing in the 5K range? Because I do like Bucky Irving and Rachaad White a lot for tournaments.
Yeah, those guys are fine. The Carolina matchup is really, I think, the reason you're getting some of them,
Yes.
because rarely do you get a timeshare back that projects this well, especially when it's 50-50, or at worst, 40-40-20 or something with Sean Tucker involved. So that has me hesitant, but then the Carolina matchup will pull you right back in. I have 15% Bucky, around 5% White. I'm fine with that. Not going to really do anything to change it. They're not players I want to be super involved with because of their timeshare, but you could very clearly see a ceiling if there's just touchdown variance and one of them gets 2 of the touchdowns or something like that. But yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in Ramondre. Just he's been so bad, and it's not really his fault. Their O-line is horrific, and Drake May is taking a ton of rushing away from him. So he's not really all that interesting to me. Around 5% is where I'll likely come in on Ramondre, which I think is fine.
I think that's just fine too, but I have more, which is terrifying. But I like the New England leverage that you're getting against Indy defense to some extent. And I'm playing a lot of Indy defense, so do not get me wrong. But you go over to our old DST, yeah, you know me, and look at the ownership there. It's Colts, 17, 20%. You go to small field even more so. I'm willing to roll out some Ramondre simply to try to capitalize on that, because do I want to click too much on Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry? No, I do have some of those runbacks, talked about it when we covered Anthony Richardson and how much more I was getting of him. I'm going to be muting that down here as we finish out this show. But yeah, we've got some super chats that we'll get to in 1 second. But Gus Edwards and Vidal, I have a terrifying suspicion that Gus Edwards is going to get potentially run off the field here in some of these spots, because he's not good. He looked awful at the beginning of the season. I think we could end up seeing a lot more work for Vidal here. And if I'm playing a cheap sub 5K running back, it is absolutely 100% Vidal. If you don't know who Kamani Vidal is, where did he go to school, Matt?
Troy?
Really? He went to Troy? I'm going to click on a guy who played at Troy.
Yeah.
Not great, Bob. But Kamani Vidal, at least, I'm pretty confident amongst these guys, Haskins, Gus Edwards, and Vidal, he's got to be your pass catching back. And Justin Herbert, this is a team that is going out and trying to pass a lot more. I like mixing Vidal into my Herbert lineups. I know it sounds insane, but you know what? Whenever you look at a Millie maker winning lineup, rarely do you think that was rational. That made a lot of sense. I think Vidal is a guy that, in hindsight, people could look at and be like, oh, yeah, Vidal played 55-60% of snaps in a game that was pretty neutral, or maybe they're playing from behind. He's a flat 4K. I get nervous whenever these guys were inactive the last couple of weeks, because it obviously means they're not good, but no J.K. Dobbins out there changes the game a little bit for me, and he's a flat 4K. I haven't seen anything down here that I've liked in weeks. So yeah, why am I playing 10% of Kamani Vidal today, Matt?
Well, you're going to be 10x the field on him, so
That's cool.
Well, I mean, I'm using that as a positive.
Oh, good. Okay, I like that.
Like
that.
you're
Thank
gonna
you.
have you're gonna have leverage with him. He's going to be probably an avenue to getting like Nico Collins and some of these other stud receivers. I just have no idea what the workload is going to be. For whatever reason, every time Gus Edwards has been active, he's like very clearly ahead of Vidal. My fear with him is that Hassan Haskins is also ahead of him. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm worried about his pass blocking stuff. He did catch some passes at Troy, but just like a super low level of competition. Do they trust a rookie in some of those situations? Like, I'm not trying to say that they're not going to trust him. I'm saying I legitimately don't know. And
yeah, I don't know either.
There's quite a bit of risk, but I mean, at 4K, if you're going to play, like you're playing 150, so 10% of 150, that's not that many lineups. And even if you wanted to taper it down to like 5 or something, I mean, you're just taking a shot on something that could be very beneficial to you when we just flat out don't know. I might play a little bit of Vidal too. I didn't get any, but like he's probably one of the toughest players to project in all at DFS today. You just have no idea.
I want to be able to go on social media with the clip and a Millie make your winning lineup of Kamani Vidal and be rich and just gloat. That's what I want.
I want that too, but I don't know.
Yeah. You know what I'm probably going to get? 0 fantasy points. But nobody knows. That's what makes it kind of interesting. You have 4,300 Gus Edwards. If he's not going to be getting, 15 carries, he had 18 in week 2 against Carolina, but that was Carolina, and that game was never really in doubt. Trust me, I've spent way too much time trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the Chargers backfield this week. It's kind of making my head hurt. I've just landed on 10% Vidal, 4% Gus Edwards, 0 Haskins, and I'm moving on with my life.
I think Haskins is the least likely to see a meaningful increase in his role, but I think you could argue that you'll see some for Vidal, and I think certainly for Edwards. Edwards is like the hardest guy to talk about in the entire slate almost because he's been horrible. I mean, I think they should just like bench him and use anything but him, but they're not doing that. So you need to at least take that into consideration that they're using him. They've clearly had him as the number 2 back all season long. I imagine he's going to get opportunities, but man, at some point, if Vidal has like a decent game early on, I don't know how you just don't ride the hot hand. It's a very difficult situation to project. I think the best situation for those of you playing big tournaments is just take some shots on both. You don't need to play a lot of them. You can kind of cover your bases, which is rarely something I advocate because I think you can make some stands in DFS, but it's just so hard to project down here. I like what they do for the rest of your lineup too. So it's not even like Vidal or Edwards need to have a nuclear game. You could just have like a touchdown and I don't know, 70 yards. If they got a bonus, I think you'd be printing, but it's very tough for this situation.
The one nice thing is that we've had Haskins active nonstop the entire year. He hasn't played like at all, topping up around like 5-10 snaps, whatever. But he hasn't been targeted in the passing game once. That's the one nice thing about me looking at Vidal is like, I know how bad Gus Edwards is at that. So we've seen that in Baltimore. We've seen that in the early going here with the Chargers. I feel pretty confident Vidal. I'm hoping the Chargers end up coming from behind 10x on Vidal and we cash all that money, honey. It would be lovely. But anything else at the running back position for you before we move on?
I guess the only other thing to really add is it's not like Dobbins was some premier pass catching back.
No.
I think he just kind of did it by default. And they do pass block a lot. So I don't know. I'll say that. I don't think you really need a pass catching back for this offense to achieve a ceiling. But we spent a lot of time on Vidal versus Gus Edwards for a situation that clearly is just an I don't know.
Go us.
I don't know how you would know. If you do know, if you have a
I think it's more interesting. I think it's more interesting, though, than talking about because, I mean, Alvin Kamara, what do you want us to say about Alvin Kamara? What do you want us to say about Chase Brown? You know what I mean? Like, we might as well get into the nitty gritty and win you some effing money.
Again, I think there is a ceiling here that's not being played. It's just hard to realize and very uncertain.
Yeah. Some super chats, everybody. J. Ryan Brownlaw, criminal defense. That is fantastic that he has like his entire Google name in the super chat. He gave us $20 too. He's a rich lawyer. 2 first place finishes yesterday, Turkey Hangover and Mini Max. Thanks, Matt. So he won the hangover contest and the mini max with your projections. Why didn't you win those, Matt?
I had a good Friday. I just gave it all back on Saturday.
It's great. It's
but
good
congratulations to you, man. It
J.
takes a lot of
Ryan
hard work to
Brownlaw.
win those contests, and you won it 2 days in a row. Good job, man.
It's good stuff. Marcus Allen, $9.99. He just did it for 1K likes. That was so nice of him. We have 1.1K likes. So obviously, we could get to 1.5. That would be awesome. And Matt will sing us a song, a Christmas song to really kick off December at the end of this show. Right? Good King Wenceslas went down. Allrat 14, $2. Smith, Campbell, Dotson, Covey if Smith is out in Philly. What do you think about the ancillary pieces there in Philadelphia in the event that Devonta Smith is officially ruled out?
We've seen this situation a lot before, going back even a couple of years, and I know sometimes they've had different OCs, but very rarely do you see like a Dotson or a third player get super involved. Generally what happens is it consolidates around Goddard and AJ Brown. So that's where most of my ownership is. In fact, I don't think I have a single ancillary Philly player. I would rather just play a little bit more Goddard, a little bit more AJ Brown.
All right. That's beautiful. Chris Albers, $5. Is 30% Bucky too much? He's electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie. I added that part. Also, Matt, have you seen Varsity Blues? Got to throw you a bone since I know Eric will bring up a movie. I haven't brought up a movie once. I have quoted a movie one other time during this program. Real ones know. But yeah, I've been pretty tame here so far. But now all I can think about is whipped cream.
I have 18% Bucky. I don't think 30% is crazy. I don't know what Varsity Blues is.
I was talking about whipped cream in relation to Varsity Blues, not Bucky Irving. I want that to be known. Although Bucky Irving is a beautiful man. Quack, quack, go Ducks. That's the family I married.
Go Gophers.
Rah, rah for Skyuma. Rah for the U of M.
He was there before he was at Oregon.
Oh, he was at U of M? I didn't know that until just now.
Oh, yeah. He was there. And then he transferred.
Was he a wagon there?
Yeah, he was. He was pretty good. But then, they used a ton of backs. Wanted to go somewhere he could get a better role. And he did.
Found a better role in Oregon.
And a better team.
I love that graphic. Every time I bring it up, it makes me so happy. That's about the only graphic bit that Jordan Klein does that I like. Jordan Klein, hey, he gave us the last super chat. Love Matt's new haircut. Looks more suave. Am I missing something there?
Yeah, I didn't get a haircut.
It's awkward. Jacob Dunn, $2. Stover, good play to save money. How much Lockett you have? I have no Tyler Lockett. I'm pretty confident in that.
I don't have any Tyler Lockett, but I do have interest in that passing game. I do want to play Smith and Jigba, especially after kind of a down game. DK is always in play for a tournament option. His price isn't great today.
All right. Well, we're at the midway point of the show, basically. We got, 32 minutes left until lock. Smash the like button, but also, guys, this deal is just too ridiculous. Black Friday, 50% off any core or max sub. You want to check out the Sims in multiple sports, the NBA, the NFL being the two main sheriffs in town. We have great stuff for MMA. Don't sleep on that. Greg Ehrenberg doing an awesome job covering that one here for us over on the YouTube channel, but also our projections team is doing an awesome job putting together some stuff. I know a lot of people think MMA, one of those sports that, I can just play this one versus that one and take advantage. No, you still want to be utilizing Sims technology, my friends. It is too good to pass up. But specifically in the NFL, NBA streets, a lot of you are going to find a lot of success here. And 50% off for your first payment with Black Friday for either a week or monthly subscription. Take advantage of that now. It expires at the end of day, 12 p.m. midnight, or what is that? 12:01 a.m. midnight, 9:01 p.m. Pacific. There we go. Go me. Black Friday, 50% off. Awesome stuff from our dev team putting that together. All righty. Wide receiver. Let's have ourselves a joyous old occasion here at the top end where we have Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp. We'll cut it off at Devontae Adams there at 7K. We'll go 7K and up. I'm in love with 3 wide receivers up in this top end, and I am way over to every single one. I will tell you them at the end of this, but you have to first tell us, who do you have the most of 7K and above?
Puka Nacua, a little ahead of Nico Collins.
Yep.
Those are the top 2 for me.
Yep.
We already talked at length about the Rams passing game playing New Orleans. I think you could play Cup as well if you wanted to. Just Puka projects a decent amount better, considering they're only 200 apart. Nico Collins, I mean, I think the conversation would be very different, and maybe it wouldn't be, all right, he's a good tournament play. Maybe it would be he's a good chalk play if he had either of the touchdowns he scored count in the last couple games because of ticky-tack penalties. The third player for me is Jamar Chase. You have to go all the way up for him, but he's leverage off T. Higgins chalk for a game that's pretty enticing. I'm a little surprised by it, but I'm just going to lean into Vegas. They have Cincinnati's. I mean, they have a pretty damn high team total considering it's Pittsburgh on the other side, but I mean, we need to take that into consideration. So I'll say Jamar third. It's close between him and J. Jeff. He'd be 4.
Okay, Justin Jefferson is number 3 for me. I love
I
him
can see
though.
that.
Again, I'm more than double the field here at the moment. Nico Collins is second amongst that grouping. If you've watched me talk about on this program, there was 1 week and 1 week only where I was under the field on Nico Collins, and of course he put up the absolute must-have, gotta-have-it spot in that one. Oh, that was so unbelievable. But I mean, the field. I mean, there's no doubt. Man coverage, not probably what you should be doing against Nico freaking Collins, but Puka Nacua is number 1 here. Him and Cooper Kupp on the field together is just dynamic, I think, for both of them. And we've seen Nacua get the majority share. Here's what I'm worried about, Matt. When you're talking about like increasing ownership to a guy and you're talking about Puka and Cooper, it's really hard to play both of them and then not have Matt Stafford in the lineup and then expect good things to happen, because I just think there's so much upside here. Again, I have some doubles of those two. I don't know any other way to do it, but I'm basically asking for 35 from both of them. A little bit more of a hard ask. I think that that's something I want to do in a limited number of lineups, not in, just all of the main ones. But looking at Puka Nacua, the guy is an absolute freak. And this New Orleans secondary without Marshawn Lattimore, if it hadn't been for like nuclear games that New Orleans themselves have put up to kind of like hide some of those concerns, I mean, we still saw Jameis Winston do pretty damn dirty things to them. And put up some fantasy points. We have seen this New Orleans defense with no Marshawn Lattimore do absolutely nothing in terms of holding opposing wide receivers to anything that doesn't even look like a mediocre game. Everybody's going nuclear against them, and I kind of expect that to continue going forward. I have to be involved with all the Puka Nacua. He is in nearly 45% of my lineups. I can't remember an expensive 7K plus wide receiver that I had this much of on a slate.
Yeah, I don't have that much, but I think he's an awesome play. I won't really belabor that point. There's a lot of guys to talk about. He's one of the best wide receiver plays in the slate. It's just a risk tolerance thing. You want to play as much as Eric, or do you want to smooth it out and play some other studs and be a coward like me?
I know he has 1 touchdown on the year. You think that's going to stop me from playing Puka Nacua?
You know what that means? It means he's due.
It means he's due to smack over 30. I mean,
he's also played in like 4 games.
Yeah, he said, 13, 9, 14 targets the last 3. I feel pretty good about Puka Nacua today. We'll just put it that way. Obviously, I'm putting my money where my mouth is on that one, and as well as going up to some Cooper Kupp, because I just love that Rams passing game. This is in the late swap window, too. I'm going to be able to react to a lot of that news, make sure Devonta Smith is out, and get to the Dallas Goedert that I'm imagining in my mind and in the Sims tool. That is for sure. But yeah, I'm looking at Puka Nacua as the guy I like the most, 7K and above. I don't think I'm alone in that sentiment. But as we move into the 6K range, tons of tournament options. We'll start with Garrett Wilson, where him and Adams every single week going to be really, really low owned. I think they're always in play. I just don't know how to parse between the two of them. George Pickens, he exists, and him and Russell Wilson apparently have a thing. He probably will end up in a Subway commercial together. Mike Evans, 6,700 there, Tampa Bay against Carolina. Yeah, that seems like a good time to use Mike Evans. And T. Higgins, 6,600. I'll cut it off there before we get into the Seattle pieces that I know you like for tournaments. The Zay Flowers piece that I know I like for tournaments. But above 6,500, who stands out to you the most? Because I think there's viability to everyone.
Mike Evans and T. Higgins for sure are the top 2 options. I mean, it largely is just Mike Evans' matchup against Carolina, and you'd think this role would ascend closer to what we saw earlier in the year. And honestly, we don't really have a great sample of him without Chris Godwin recently. You'd have to go all the way back to like the Godwin ACL years. But we would hypothetically think this target share consolidates around him, and I think it could be like 30% in certain games. If you're going to give me like a 30% target share against Carolina, I mean, I'll take that all day. For T. Higgins, it's just he's significantly underpriced. Like, he's out targeting Jamar Chase. There's no way around it. Their prices should be closer to each other. I also think that's why like Jamar's an awesome GPP play today because he is mispriced in the wrong direction is T. Higgins. It's literally just a pricing thing. Matchup is not going to be easy for either of them. I would go say Pittsburgh plays a fair amount of zone, so I wouldn't expect like Porter on either one of them significantly. But yeah, I mean, I'm just going to bake in the team total, look at the target shares for these two guys. T is too cheap.
T is too cheap. That is the name of the game. T Higgins is too cheap, but it's still going to be a difficult spot for me to get over the field, I think, on him for tournament purposes. I think he's very, very popular. He's probably one of the better plays on this. I mean, he's third in terms of ownership, 16.2%. I have T. Higgins in every league. I absolutely love him. Wow. I think he's incredible. I mean, he's, I think, one of my top 3 highest owned best ball guys on DK. I don't think that's the case over on Underdog right now, but T. Higgins, I very much like. However, I feel uncomfortable in this spot against Pittsburgh, playing him at this kind of ownership when you've got McConkey sitting down there at 6,100. I think he should rightfully be that highest owned guy. He's been an incredible rookie, no doubt about it. I have none of him in best ball. This I know. I definitely think you could fire up both of these JSN DK Metcalf characters as well against the Jets, especially with the Jets pulling the kind of ownership that they are in tournaments from a defensive perspective. A nice way to get some leverage on those lineups. How do you feel about the lower sixes, Matt?
I'm with you that it's great for tournaments. I think Zay Flowers is fine as well if you're willing to stack Baltimore in a very expensive stack. But I already talked about Seattle. I don't respect New York's defense. I will say Seattle's offensive line is atrocious, especially since they lost their center. But I don't know if New York is capable of really exploiting that. I actually trust Grubb a lot as an OC to be able to scheme away some of that. I'm with you on Ladd. He's pretty owned, and I'm trying to come in a little lower on some of the Chargers guys, or at the very best, like with the field. So I'll have him in check a little bit. My highest owned low 6K player is Zay Flowers right now.
Just play Vidal and get all the touchdowns.
If that's the case, you're going to be a rich man.
I really, really hope so. I would like that very much. Help me, I'm poor. You don't know that movie. There's no way.
I've heard that. What is that from? Maybe I just have heard it from like Twitter.
Bridesmaids.
Oh, jeez. No. I'm pretty sure I used to live in one of the bridesmaids' apartments, though.
Really?
Someone said this to me. I've never seen the movie, so I'm not 100% sure. Or if it's even the right movie.
I would love if you were in that apartment while they were shooting that movie. I think it would be.
I wasn't there when they were shooting it. Is there an apartment in Milwaukee in that movie? Maybe chat will know.
I think there might be. I think there is. I don't know.
Then I definitely live there.
That's next level, man. Somebody has 99% Puka Nacua. That's more than me.
Hey, man, just risk tolerance.
YOLO. All right. Yeah, Ladd McConkey. He looks awfully good. There's nothing really else to say. I love Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is my boy in this range, though. I just play him and Lamar Jackson every single week in tournaments and move on with my life. I also have a lot of Mark Andrews, also a lot of Dallas Goedert, because, again, the Sims tool has that being one of my favorite paths of getting exposure to that game. Highest total on the entire board. Feel pretty confident that that is going to be underutilized today. So, yeah, Zay Flowers, 6,200. I mean, we're never going to see Deontay Johnson mix in, like, ever along with Zay Flowers. What are we actually doing here?
I don't know, but the chat is on it. I did live in that apartment. Brandon M is on the actual street where I lived. So, yeah, I don't live there anymore. I'm not doxing myself in my address, but yeah.
Jordan Klein, look at this. Actually doing good producer things. The 2011 movie Bridesmaids was set in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and filmed in several locations around the city, including the art museum, the bar exterior, and Annie's apartment exterior located at, not going to say it out loud because that would be creepy.
I don't live there anymore. You can say whatever you want.
2501 South Kinnickinnick
Yeah, Avenue? That's it. That's where I used to live.
Did I say that correctly, by the way?
You did. Kinnickinnick.
Such a cool name. Probably a disaster to write down on cards, though.
All right. I'm with Laffy. I'm not sending cards.
Laffy doesn't like to send cards?
Oh, he went on an epic rant one time about getting Christmas cards and like saying, what am I supposed to do with Christmas cards? Like, I appreciate the thought, but I don't want your Christmas. It was great. I don't know what it was on. Otherwise, I would ask you to go watch it. You'd get a good laugh. He hates getting Christmas cards.
Save the Grinch. What are we doing? Like, it's lovely. You put it on the fridge. Whatever. We don't have time. 5K range. Tank Dell looks fun, doesn't he? At sub 6%. Brian Thomas Jr. pulling some ownership here with the reemergence of Trevor Lawrence showing up here in our lives. Jordan Addison, unowned, coming off of a nuclear bomb that he dropped in Chicago. And Michael Pittman, 5,200, pulling a lot of ownership here. I prefer Addy Mitchell. I will probably have to force myself into some Alec Pierce. I currently have none, and he's generally my boy. I always bring up Alec Pierce, but 5K range, what stands out to you?
It's this range that I think is kind of like the cutoff for me in a lot of lineups. I don't love going below this, but most own plays for me in this range, I have a decent amount of Pittman, which I don't particularly love. Brian Thomas, I'm also pretty in on, especially with all the injuries. And he plays a very different role than Evan Ingram. I think they can both get there with Trevor Lawrence back. I'm okay with Darnell Mooney on the other side of that LA game. I think he deserves a decent amount of ownership. And I'm also interested in some Ridley. There's like a wart with every single one of these players, but it's like, what are you really going to do? Be overexposed to the 4K range? So in a lot of my lineups, I just found my way up to a lot of these guys.
Gotcha. I think it makes a ton of sense. Let's go sub 5K here, friend, because I want to get ourselves and give ourselves some time for the tight end position for sure. But we have Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Obviously, with how much of that game I have, of course, I have some of him in my life. Adam Thielen, 4,800 for Adam Thielen without Deontay Johnson there seems like a lot of fun in tournaments against Tampa Bay. I kind of want to roll the dice there. We got Rashad Bateman, 4,400, Noah Brown, 4,400. I think all of them in play. Your mega chalk down here is, of course, David Moore. Addy Mitchell is starting to come up there, sitting around 10%, 11%, so almost in line with that of David Moore here at this point in time. But I think you got to find some guys that you like down here. And sure, there are going to be some Eagles guys that look a little bit better, but not good enough to really compete with how much I would like Dallas Goedert, or the Sims would like Dallas Goedert if you have Devonta Smith out. So sitting sub 5K, I'm just going to open up the board to you. What are your favorite plays to click on?
Noah Brown is my favorite. I mean, basically like eye for eye with Terry McLaurin in Washington. Never would have thought that. I don't love the chalk pieces down here. I think 80 is getting steamed a little bit, but I think a lot of that is warranted. It's just like, who else are you going to play down here? Are you really going to be overexposed to David Moore? I'm not going to be. I'm going to be significantly under the field right now. I have him in 13% of lineups, and I honestly consider just Xing him for the leverage. I think projections really struggle with a guy like this who, I mean, we've seen this multiple times this year. And like last year, you could go all the way back to like the Justin Watson chalk week. These players have one good game and then suddenly projections like them. And it's largely because projections have to take into account the most recent game. But if that game was an outlier compared to their regular role, you're over projecting them, which I think is probably the case with David Moore. So, I mean, we're talking about like chalk secondary Panthers receivers. I'll just find a different way to build. I'll play Booty, who was this very same player 2-3 weeks ago, now is unowned. And there's a number of guys down here you could use that are, I think, kind of on equal footing, like Calvin Austin, pay up a little bit for Addy Mitchell. I mean, the rest of them are pretty dusty, but yeah, I don't love David Moore today.
Could you imagine if this is Booty Day, Big Booty Judy Day?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just as likely as David Moore being good.
I'm with you. I'm just saying, it just would
at least
be
Booty is a
ultimate
good
troll
quarterback.
job. Yep. That's true. And yeah, there's really nothing else to add to that one. That's for sure. Because
how much David Moore are you playing?
4%.
Okay, so I'm even north of you.
I have 0 of him in my top of my main lineups. I know that for a fact. 0. I have 6%. I'm a liar.
I just can't get there, man.
I just thought it was 4.
I've been down this road too many times.
It's a dark and lonely road. The only one that I have ever known. Don't know where it goes, but it's home to me, and I walk alone to the tight end position. Actually, you're going to come with me, Matt. We're going to cover it. But first, thanks. You want to give thanks here and finish out the season in style from a betting perspective. We've got Portfolio EV 75% off right now. Code THANKS, THANKS. Look at that. Eric can spell. Thanks for 75% off Portfolio EV right now at the link below. That is valid up until Monday, December 2nd. Take advantage of it, my friends. You have a great chance to make a lot of money really, really quickly. I'm telling you, what Greg is doing right now, Greg Ehrenberg in the NBA streets, is unheard of. 100 into nearly 500 in a month. This is 5x. We're just running into ridiculous runouts here with the Sims tool, but it makes sense. It's using unbelievable tools, unbelievable technology to give you everything you could possibly want in a betting product, which is positive expected value. Other people will say that, hey, we can do this, we can do that. No, we can put our money where our mouth is and put it directly on X. Go follow Greg Ehrenberg, G Ehrenberg DFS. Follow that thread every single day. It's no bullshit. Use code THANKS for 75% off and check it out for yourself for a week or a month right now over at oddshopper.com. Tight end. Tons of tight end showing up here in the Sims tool. I like all of it. Trey McBride, 5,800. Taysom Hill, 5K. Evan Ingram, 4,800. Even Kyle Pitts showing up in a little bit. I don't really like Kyle Pitts. I'm a liar there. Cade Otton, Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews. What isn't to like at tight end? This is where I want to be getting my value. This is why I don't have David Moore in my life. Why do I need David Moore in my life, Matt Gajeski?
Dude, I'm with you. I said this at the beginning of this stream. I would rather play Andrews or likely over David Moore. You're getting a significantly more talented player, less ownership. I think what should be a similar projection. I'm happy to play the two tight end lineups, like even going all the way up to a Goddard. These players just project significantly better and are more talented than the dusty receivers that are at the same prices. I don't know why we're getting these prices on the really bad receivers this year. It's actually pretty frustrating, but it's led me to more two tight end builds.
I just reran my Sim stuff. Anthony Richardson now just falling down the planet.
You have Hawkinson is 3,400.
Yeah, Hawkinson 3. I mean, this is absurd. Hawkinson way too cheap. Everybody's too cheap here at the moment, and we're starting to get guys ramped up in terms of volume. TJ Hawkinson, obviously a late start to his season coming off of the knee injury. We've got Taysom Hill in a completely different role than we've ever seen any player in the NFL really have before at 5K. Evan Ingram gets Trevor Lawrence back, completely different situation. In Houston, they just allowed 350 yards from Cooper Rush. That's one game and one game only, but I do think Evan Ingram has a massive ceiling you want access to. Dallas Goedert, 4,300. We're already assuming Devonta Smith out, so 21% ownership on him. I think that that's not just fair, but probably a little bit too low if he's going to be getting that extra volume. Cade Otton, we've seen the ceiling there. He's taking on Carolina. Mark Andrews, I could go on and on and on. All I really want to say is that I really don't want to play anything sub 3,500. This is not a punt tight end week for me. Is it a punt tight end week for you? I'm assuming the answer is no.
Yeah, you'd be correct on that. There's not a lot down there. I don't even know if I have I have a little bit of Dalton Schultz because I boosted CJ Stroud. Okay.
That's not that
That's
egregious.
it. It's 4%.
That's so wild. But I think it's 100% justified.
I think so too. I mean, I don't think we can really play anyone down here. Especially like it's not even just like there's not that many viable plays. Part of it is like this mid-range of tight end is underpriced. And then even the players that are the stone minute tight end are just overpriced. Like if you had no floor to the DraftKings pricing, they would be like $200. It would be like a showdown slate. But we don't have that. And we do have all of like the 4K range pretty underpriced.
I've had a lot of questions in my Discord over at Tails. You guys can check that out as well. Going back and forth with a couple of different sharp people who are playing a lot of DFS alongside me. We were talking basically through like, should you be caring about it being a 2 tight end build this week? And my answer was basically no, because when you look at some of the upside running backs, we're going to, if you need 3 nuclear running backs, I totally get it. But like, there's got to be savings somewhere in your lineup. And David Moore at wide receiver is just like the punt du jour. And not only if he fails do you smash, but like, there are so many good like floors on these tight end plays that in terms of cashing and like sustainability for your DFS bankroll, like I really like 2 tight ends this week more than I probably ever have on any slate all year.
I'm with you. I'm completely there on 2 tight ends. I have no problem with it. It's exactly what we talked about. It's like, would you rather play Noah Brown or Hawkinson? Like Hawkinson's a way better player in real life. With an ascending role, is probably just going to out-target Noah Brown a lot of weeks, and that's anecdotal, but I think you could make that anecdotal case in a lot of situations where your 4K receiver of choice versus your 4K tight end.
Beautifully said. Okay, maybe tight end we don't need all the time in the land. I thought we did, but
What are you doing with Taysom?
Oh boy. Here's the thing. I don't know yet. And this is probably going too far into the weeds on it, but I'm very curious to see where ownership lands on these early tight ends, specifically Evan Ingram, TJ Hawkinson, Will Disley, all these early tight end plays. I'm going to be definitely adding up the ownership because I got a feeling that we're going to get, tight end ownership that's harder to project than normal, because a lot of weeks we can basically like sum zero out the flex and say, all right, not a lot of 2 tight end builds. But now we basically are going to be building out, like, I'm not going to say 200% ownership, but like, I'm not going to be able to just add up their ownership and then plug and play because of how many people are going to play 2 tight end. I think it's the right thing to do for what it's worth. But like, I think it's going to be much more difficult for me to figure out what Taysom Hill ownership is going to be sitting at. But I'm going to see how my pieces do from these early sessions of games. And if I have lineups that are just smashing that have Taysom Hill in the tight end spot, I'm going to leave it be. But if I need to make some pivots and, we just got an alert saying Devonta Smith is pushing to try to play, I don't think, you're going to have to worry about that too much. But like, I want to get myself onto some Dallas Goedert or more Dallas Goedert in the event that he's out there. I want to get myself into some AJ Brown up from Puka Nacua, to maybe get onto him a little bit more than what I currently am in the event that news breaks out that way. There's just so much that is tough to tell about what that ownership's actually going to land on, because have we ever seen a tight end put up like 46 fantasy points and throw and catch and run and do all the things he did? No. I'm worried he ends up even more popular, or it gets steamed way up. So I think the answer is I don't know right now, because I have 24%. I could very easily see myself going way above that or way below it based on the early games.
Yeah, I could see that too. I'm kind of with the field on Taysom Hill, trying to avoid the ceilings and being underowned where he buries me, and then trying to avoid some of the floor games he's had too. But I think those floor games are probably few and far between at this point. I like his projection. I think that's closer to his floor.
Yep. And just a completely different role. I mean, he's just so locked into being that dude. Like, they don't have other options. Like, you can't throw to MVS 8 times a game. You just can't do it. Like, what are we? I'm the biggest MVS fan /stan/ everything in the entire world. Do I hate him with an undying passion as well? Yes, absolutely. But love and hate border each other. You can't throw to MVS 8 times a game. You can't do it. You could throw to Taysom Hill 8 times a game if you absolutely needed to.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know how you throw to MVS that many times. So, but they don't have players, man. So
rip to all of us. Just rip. Oh, it's going to be a lovely, lovely festivity. But anything else that you wanted to cover here?
Some people are asking about cheap defenses. I mean, you could just go all the way and play the Jags.
You could. You could also not. But
well, I mean, they do project well because Houston is an awful offensive line, but the Jaguars also have an awful defense. I think they're mainly just the product of this is a tight slate, like save all the salary you can. If they get you 6 points, you're still probably okay. The Jets project well too. I don't love the Jets for a lot of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I'm actually playing some Seattle stuff against them. I don't know why they project so well. It largely stems from Vegas overvaluing them. Arizona and New England are interesting for cheap options. I think Arizona, who's actually been pretty good this year, but if you look at their stats with and without the Bears game, they're not quite as good, like by a wide margin. But Darnold will make some mistakes. Ultimately, I think the Jaguars, just going all the way down, is my preferred option. Second, I would say the Cardinals.
Yeah. Amongst the chalky defenses, though, Colts, Jets, do you have a preference?
Colts for sure. I'm not a Jets believer.
Yeah, I love the Colts. I think I have the Colts in every single one of my main lineups. Yep, I do. Didn't lie about that. I have 100%.
The Jaguars are my most
5
owned
main
defense.
lineups.
It's going to be a good day.
Jaguars are?
Yep, not by a lot, but yeah, I'm still pretty spread.
Go team. Go team. Can't wait for them to hand it off to Joe Mixon 30 times. But hey, you have that box covered, so that's good.
I literally think it's just a pay all the way down to save yourself some salary. Let's not pretend here. I didn't do anything to defense. This is what the Sims gave me.
I love you.
You know I wasn't back here.
I know. No, I mean, we've had this conversation enough times to know that it's kind of whatever the Sims tool is running out for you. And I think that's the way that it should be. I try not to go too crazy with it. It's always nice, though, when you're able to get some leverage off of some guys. Panthers not expected to draft a QB early next year. But why? Bryce Young has one good game, and we're not going to. All right.
I mean, what are they? I'll look up their draft picks.
Oh, they are just. Well, I mean, they have what, 40 million a year wrapped up into their running back position now or something? 30 million?
I wouldn't pick a quarterback early in this draft. Their quarterbacks are horrible.
Shador.
Not like their team is any good.
Shador. Or whatever we saw. Miami couldn't beat Syracuse yesterday, so I'm pretty out on what's his face.
Cam Ward.
You can't go and lose to Syracuse. You just can't.
If you love interceptions, you'll love Cam Ward.
I do love interceptions, hopefully by the Colts defense today. But everybody smash that like button. We do have a super chat here. Michael, $1.99. Brian Thomas or Calvin Ridley?
Ridley for me.
Jeremy Doyle, $1.99. AJ Brown or Justin Jefferson on FanDuel? And then Fave RB on FanDuel. Great question. AJ Brown or Justin Jefferson on FanDuel? I will take AJ Brown. I have Justin Jefferson, much more of a DK play for me.
I agree with you.
And then on FanDuel, my favorite RB play is, I only built 20 lineups over there, but I wanted to at least functionally know what I was talking about. It's
like
Alvin
the same
Kamara,
thing for
but
me.
like, yeah, it's Alvin Kamara.
I don't have a lot of difference between these. I think the biggest difference is you can play McCaffrey.
Yeah, McCaffrey's fun. Anytime touchdowns, -125, that's wild. But 49ers, lowest implied total on the slate. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, they're going to have to use McCaffrey if they want to eclipse that. And he still projects like pretty darn well.
Yeah, 16.93 over on FanDuel for the people playing over there. 8,800, he's cheaper. 200 cheaper than Derrick Henry. Pulling a little bit more ownership, though, which I find to be a little interesting. Jamal Adams signing with the Lions practice squad. That is a great decision if you're the Lions. Price Productions, $20. Good luck, guys. Thanks for the info. You are so very welcome. How should I play a RB in the flex? If you do, I mean, you're probably going to find somebody that you have to save costs with. I see Bucky Irving is kind of a guy showing up in the flex for me a lot in the afternoon window in some of those non-tight end in the flex lineups. How about yourself, Matt?
I got a decent amount of RB flex. My top three flexes were Taysom Hill, Hawkinson, Ertz, but then right below that, it's Kamara, Kyron Williams. So there are ways to do it. You're probably playing some cheap receiver or just maybe not paying all the way up. Maybe you're using like a Bucky or a Herbert or something, but there's ways to do it.
All righty. We are going to get ourselves the heck up out of here, but another successful NFL Live Before Lock in the books. Myself. You can go follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. You can follow my friend Matt_Kajeski over on X. We have Jordan Klein behind the virtual wall there. Did an amazing job. He's been with you commercial free for 4.5 hours of talking football, not even the red zone version. But Matt, we're going to get ourselves the heck up out of here. Any final words for the people as we do?
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. It's been a long but really fun week with the Thanksgiving slate. Hope you guys were profitable there and are again today. As always, you chose to spend your morning with us and allow Eric and I to do something we love. So can't thank you guys enough for that.
I have no notes. Again, the guy crushes the sign-off game. I really have nothing that I can add to that. Some would argue I have nothing to add ever. But anywho, we're going to get ourselves out of here. Goodbye. Check out NFL Live Before Lock. It's going to be EMAC and the return of Matt Bellman. Excited to have him back in our lives here on Sunday night. Go check that out. We'll see you guys later.